Well, folks, you, Billy, me, I don't know how we did it, but we figured out a way to get to the last day of the week in this July. And if you haven't been paying attention to the calendar, 10 seconds ago, we were talking about kicking off July. We're about halfway done, peeps. By the time we come back on air on Monday, we will be more than halfway into this bad boy. In fact, the halfway point is somewhere between tomorrow and Sunday. George Brauchler with you on the George Show, 710 KNUS. Congratulations. You got to feel good about that. Weather has been really pretty decent. I don't remember any lightning bolts yesterday, but there's going to be some today. It's a high of 86 degrees. That's not bad. Lightning bolt shooting out in the afternoon, which sucks because Yankees game for me and Graham and his buddy. We're going to head out there. We'll talk about that in a minute because
When, like at 2?
Yeah,
So
exactly. Exactly. Because I'm the damn Taylor Swift thing. I read an article online where people were camping out to get T-shirts and crap. Like, what is going on?
And stuff. I know, it is nuts. I actually have a couple of friends that are going to. They don't have tickets, but they're going to go join the crowd outside of the stadium.
Why?
So you're gonna have to deal.
Doesn't
with
that seem a little maniacal?
It seems weird, but again, it's a group shared experience, and they've seen the videos of other people that have gathered outside the open air venues in other cities, and it's been kind of your own little party and fun. So his friends are like, yeah, I'm going to go down there, and I'm going to do. One of my friends is really, really into pop music, and he's a great friend of mine. He's one of my best friends on the entire planet, and wonderful guy, and he's going to go down there, and he's about our age. And I'm like, that is going to be fun. Yeah. Exactly.
Just the idea that you see a crowd and you're like, hey, we better go over here and look at this. It feels a little close to the European thing of just like, oh, there's a queue. You know, like there's a line. I guess I got to get in this thing.
Exactly.
But this is like.
And that's one of the things I love about him is he has that in him where I'm like, yeah, crowd. I'm going to try to figure out how to get around this thing. But he's like, no, let's go join the crowd. And so, yeah, that's one of the reasons that he's one of my good friends because of that. Yeah, but he's going down. So remember, you're going down there. You're going to end up not just with the 80,000 people that are going to be there. You're also going to probably encounter an additional 20 to 25,000 that are going to be outside the stadium.
It's bonkers, buddy.
Yeah,
and again, I want to like Taylor Swift because she's super successful, and every once in a while there's a catchy tune that she puts out. But she's jacking up this experience for my son and I to watch our beloved Yankees take on the hapless Rockies.
Yeah.
I don't know. At 2:00, I started thinking about driving here this morning. Like, do I go at 3?
Yeah, exactly.
And some people who've been tried to be helpful, I think I told you yesterday, were like, well, just you can take the train up, which we might, and then Uber back. And I'm like, maybe Uber. Like, I'm thinking, when's the surge pricing going to hit? Because
that's the part that's
if
hard.
the game ends at 9 because we have a 2-second pitch clock now or whatever, game ends, maybe it's not surge pricing yet. Maybe people are just getting warmed up. But I don't know, man. I don't know.
At the very least, get one of those guys with the big giant trikes to ride you back. That may be more affordable.
Wait a minute. I need you to take me back down to Parker, or
exactly. At least to the train. I'm thinking at least you do the train. You can have him go all the way to the train. But
maybe that's it. I'm gonna have to get a pocket full of cash.
Yeah. How much for Parker? And he's like,
$1,000.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's a hard pass.
Can we turn the music on and have the lights too?
I don't think we're gonna do that.
I'm wearing my Taylor Swift hat today. You'll see from last tour.
Really?
Yeah, I'm representing 1989 with the T-Swizzle hat. Yep. One of the best hats I have. Again, I have a huge amount of respect for Taylor Swift. I'm not.
Yeah, what's that about?
I'm not an over-the-top fan of the music, but I really appreciate her as an artist. I really appreciate the kind of music and how she presents herself, and she nails pop songs. This last album is fantastic. It is really.
Is it?
Oh yeah, musically,
I haven't listened to it.
Oh damn, it is good.
Really?
It's really good, yeah. And she just re-released one of her older albums, and on there is a song that she didn't put on the album at the time, but she's doing this beautiful duet with Hayley Williams of Paramore, and it is gorgeous, and it is so cool. And I love the fact, in fact, Taylor is going to take Paramore out on some of the legs of her European tour, which is wonderful, because for me, they're going to be a whole bunch of little girl pop, enthusiasts that are getting exposed to rock. And we are going to walk away with some rock fans after the end of that tour.
Here's the problem.
I'm so excited.
I want to say, Billy, let's play some music from the new thing. But as you've just told me, because we're on the YouTube and Rumble doesn't seem to care. Yeah. But apparently YouTube has some AI bot stuff out there that goes through. And
I made a mistake yesterday when we brought on Mike Hoffman, and and I played Adele, and I ran Adele down the stream. And it was my choice, and because I wanted the people that are listening on the stream and also listening to the podcast to experience it, and Rumble doesn't care. YouTube does care. So YouTube sent us a naughtygram yesterday. It said, you can't do that. So I've got to remember that. So yeah, we can't, it'd be pointless.
I think it says something about YouTube that our relationship with them is so tenuous.
Yeah, we are not on their Christmas card list.
I mean, just the idea that like the last time we left them because they're like, if you say any word that rhymes with election, like if you say selection,
yes,
we're going to take you off air.
Oh no, I'm not going to say that. I was going to start with an E and an R, but that's not good.
Yeah.
No. That'll get us banned already.
Yeah.
So no,
well, that's a different kind of ED. That's election denial.
Yeah,
that's election denial. Very different.
Yes, totally different.
But then we get right back on. We're not even on a whole damn week. And already they're like, we caught a couple bars of Adele. And despite the fact that you had the undercover mayor on, we're going to take you down if you do. It's like, come on, guys.
But again, if
we're not stealing from Adele.
But if we did have to do a pool here at the station, that would be, who would be the first person to break the rules with YouTube? I'd have to be number one. I mean,
I think that's probably true.
Odds on, I would have to at least be even money at the very least. I mean, just because I'd be the first person to do it, of course.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. That they would say Billy would be the one that would likely blow up our relationship right when
be me. Yes.
Yeah. Right after we get back in
totally
bed.
On brand. Yep.
Right after we get back in bed with YouTube, Billy's playing Dutch oven.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, did you miss me?
Yeah, I know. Woohoo!
That is so truly awful. But that's I really don't. This is one of those weekends because baseball's over. Remember, state tournament. I'm struggling to figure out what am I going to do with some of this free time. Like, if I'm not driving 1 billion miles over the course of the weekend, who am I?
Yeah,
you know what do I do with myself? I might actually get another run in. And this, I'm now starting to get scared. We are, let's see, July to August, September, October. We're now 3.5 months away from.
Oh, this is serious time.
And I've already missed a couple long runs, not because I don't want to do them. I don't want to do them, let's be honest, but it's not because I don't want to do them. It's just because this job is ruining my life.
Oh, yes.
If I think to myself, well, you know what? I'll have a little bit of time at 3, when I get done with some meetings, some Zoom stuff, 3 o'clock rolls around and, Graham will be like, hey, do you want to go out and play catch? And the only thing in my head is, I don't want to say no to this because that's not happening. I don't have this available to me for the rest of my life. I have this for a limited amount of time. So I'm like, yeah, let's go out and play catch or do something stupid like that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's 4:30 and I'm like, well, son, I really should go for a run, but who's going to make the HelloFresh?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Now I got, and then we eat the HelloFresh. And then it's like, well, I can't run on a full stomach. That's so stupid.
Yes. That's like swimming on a full stomach.
And
I
like,
told you that was bad.
Daddy's so tired. It's 6:30 now. And I can't,
That is the curse of this job.
It is.
It is because you're up so early.
And the pay, but go on.
Yes. And the idea is you have the rest of the day to do so many things. But by 3-4 o'clock, you're exhausted.
Oh man!
And that's the thing is, I have so many other things that I can accomplish during the day. But you get to 6-7 o'clock, and I am just tapping out. There's nothing there, and it's really difficult if you have this early morning job. Then you pack in the other stuff you're supposed to be doing. Then at the very end of that, to find the energy to go and work out is nearly impossible. I've done the same thing. I've got my son's got his bike home from college, and it used to be my bike, so I love riding this thing, and I can't tell you in the last 2 weeks the number of times I've walked out into the garage, looked at it, and gone, hard pass.
I can't
I can't do it.
Get on the damn bike,
and I can't do it in the middays because it's too hot. And if I come home and exercise right then, the dog wants to go for a walk when I get home. So the first thing I do after I get home is walk, and if not, it is the stare of judgment for the rest of the afternoon.
And they pee right on your carpet.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's funny because she does it, and my wife the other day noticed it. She was staring at me because she wanted to go for a walk, and she has this like judgment face. I'm like, yes, she does. Like, I'm disappointed in you.
Yeah.
Like, don't you know what time it is? How do you not know what is going on here? Yeah.
When you look at the spectrum of opportunities over the weekend, one of them may be going to the movies. Now, I saw something, we already jumped on the Mission Impossible train the day it came out here in Colorado on Tuesday. And I was thinking, dang it, there isn't really anything that I can think of that's coming out this weekend that's a must see for me right now. Like, I want to see the Barbie movie. Why? just cause I can't explain it. I want to see the damn Barbie movie, you know. And
I am so curious too. I want to see it too because I've seen the shots, I've seen the live action, and I'm kind of like, really? Are they gonna be able to make this work?
right.
Or it's either gonna be like that was funny and that was entertaining,
Yeah.
or it's gonna be, oh my god, I just saw Cats 2.
Dumpster fire.
One or the other.
It's gonna be. Yeah, that's
And
right.
of course, we went to see Cats because it was so bad. So sometimes you go and see those just because.
Listen, but the Cats one, when you go to New York and you see it's the longest running show in the history of the planet Earth, and you're like, well, all those people can't be wrong.
Yeah.
And then I get those matinee tickets for it. This is going back many years. And I'm sitting there watching it and I'm looking around at people like, am I being punked? Like, this is a completely disconnected story. And short of feelings, or short of that, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm not even a cat person. I wasn't at the time. I married into cats, but you know.
See, and that's the thing. There's some songs in there that I like, and there's some scenes that I like, but I was familiar with the poems beforehand. And so that helped a little bit. But yeah, you're right. There is barely a storyline in there. And that's kind of the hard part. And then people said, yes, let's do CGI and cat people faces.
Yeah, no. In fact, the movie Cat People, which I believe was like a 1981, 82, Natasha Kinski, Ed Begley Jr. By the way, that image I can't get out of my head. I saw that as a young kid. If you'll remember the movie, at one point, the cat, and I think Malcolm McDowell is one of the cat people. Ed Begley Jr. is the zoo worker or whatever he is. And he's got the little stick and it's kind of wrapped around his forearm and he's poking at Natasha Kinski or Malcolm McDowell when they're a panther. Folks, if I'm ruining this movie for you, it's too late. I mean, if you haven't seen it by now, it doesn't matter.
It's not gonna matter.
When that thing grabs his arm and pulls it off, I mean, and graphically, I mean, there were months that went by that I don't think I could look at a cat, like, and just, put my hands in my pockets, like, don't touch me.
Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
It was so truly awful to see. And it's now that I'm thinking about it again, I don't think I'm going to end up taking a nap today because I'll be afraid of the cat thing.
The cat will.
And you know what? And Matt's moved on, of course, to greener pastures. But maybe I'm safe now because we don't have that. But I want to go see a movie. And then I see two things. Mission Impossible is projected to already clear somewhere globally around $250 million. Wow. This opening weekend, if you go back, $250 million. But then I read where it cost something like $270 million to make.
Oh, geez.
And in part, it was because of all the COVID stuff, the Mission Impossible COVID stuff. And I thought to myself, still, I mean, these are ridiculous dollars. And then the next article in my feed is actors go on strike. I mean, why? Why would they do this to themselves? I don't know how much extra money they think they're going to get. But for me, selfishly, it's like, please don't end this. It would be like the 1981 Major League Baseball strike. I don't care who's right. I just want baseball to keep going. And I feel that way about this. These people could be engaged in the equivalent of slave labor. I don't care. I just want the movies to keep coming.
Yeah, the problem that I've got, and this is the difficulty, is I respect the union and what they're trying to get. I understand the idea that they're saying, certain platform streaming, stuff like that, isn't giving them enough money and residuals. And I get that. The problem that makes it tough for me is when you have millionaires and billionaires fighting over money. It's kind of like, really? And so that's the funny thing is I get it sometimes when people are like, in the line at King Supers and stuff. And no, I have a coupon for that. You didn't run the coupon because I get it because you're tight on a budget. But these are people that live with an income that is not even close to what any of us can even relate to.
And
they're fighting over more money.
That shop exclusively for do I like the color?
Yes.
I mean, they don't ever have to look at I do a considerable amount of clothes shopping at places that rhyme with Smostco and Ham's Club. You know what I mean? Like I'm walking around going, "Oh, that looks really good."
Exactly. Like
$11 for pants.
Exactly.
Yay! And
it doesn't have 3 legs; it's only got the 2. This is wonderful,
right? And it's got a European cut, which is weird.
That's very strange.
But these people don't ever do that. They just buy something because they like it.
Yeah.
Like what is that like?
Wear it once.
What is that like?
Yeah, now it's old. Yeah.
In fact, now that you bring it up, Billy, I should make an annual trek to whatever that Beverly Hills Goodwill is. Can you imagine what's in there?
I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what's in there.
Is that Gucci?
Yeah, exactly. And the stuff, I'm sure you find numbers of things in there with the tag still on. And
I should have thought of that a long time ago.
and
Dang it.
That's the part that it makes me upset, because it's like, come on, guys. You have piles and piles of cash.
Piles of cash.
How can you not figure out an equitable way to divide this up? How come you are going to, when you have this much money, why are you fighting over this type of minutia? Just sit down and figure it out. And that's the part that it gets mad at me, where one group of people with a giant pile of money and another group of people with an equally giant pile of money, and they're like, no, we each need more of the monies. No, wait a minute here. Isn't there a way that you could figure out how to share all of it and everything would be fine? I don't understand how it gets to this level. When we have things like a union strike with King Soopers, when that happened, okay, I get it. I understand how the rank and file worker is like, listen, I need more of this and I need this, and here's the profit margins that the company's making.
If you're going to pay me to stand in place while crimes are committed around me, I'm going to need more money.
Yes, I'm going to need more money. And given the fact that you seem to be making a bazillion, I think maybe there's a little bit more that can, come down the food chain. But when these people are high up on the food chain and they're arguing about this, I have very little sympathy. I have such little sympathy. I have sympathy for the writers, but the actors, you don't even have to think of your own stuff.
Yeah, writers, I get.
The writers have to be the creative side. The actors are given paper, and they say, here, read this.
I'd like to be an actor. In light of that,
it's like, think about when we do the commercial reads here, and we'll record them. The only effort is, here, make sure the pronunciation is correct. That's really where we're going.
But I also have to bring the heat. I got to bring that energy, man. It's all like, if I were to just, read
nail it in.
Like if I'm just reading it like I'm Stefan or something, who knows? I'm kidding, Stefan. If you're listening at the podcast when you get up at noon, I apologize.
It is, yeah. He does those Black Eyed Pea reads are good.
He does. The Black Eyed Pea ones make me want to go to the Black Eyed Pea.
He sells that well.
Yeah, and there's the one off of Wadsworth there in Lakewood, north of the old Villa Italia, that last time I ever went to a Black Eyed Pea was there. That is delicious. That's good stuff. Yeah. Nobody's getting thinner at the Black Eyed Pea because it's just too good. But with the movie thing, and we may talk about this later, I think there's a huge risk here, man.
Oh, yeah.
And as we talked about off air, and the show, folks, for those of you that don't know, the show actually starts at about 5:25 a.m. We just don't have the microphones on at the time.
And the funny part, you would not believe the number of times that either George or I look at the clock and go, "Oh God, we're on in 2 minutes."
Yeah, that's right. Or Billy will scream as I'm getting coffee. The news is playing.
Yes, exactly.
The news is on.
Yeah, I have a tendency to announce time cues. Very loudly down the
hall. Didn't help us yesterday.
No,
by the way, whatever we did yesterday. In fact, I had other people comment on that. Like even Patty Calhoun made mention of that. I saw her yesterday at Colorado Inside Out, which it's a great show. I was the token old white man in the middle of a group of otherwise very smart, very accomplished women who knew way more than I did. But I got
the sympathy votes.
I was it's like they wheeled me out to say, see, we're equal opportunity or whatever it is. Like we still acknowledge that they're there.
Exactly.
But I don't think they needed me for this show because all these people came with
research and preparation.
Exactly. Our friend Chris from the DBJ, Denver Business Journal, was sitting next to me on the right. And as the guy's like, 60 seconds, people, 60 seconds before they go on. And by the way, Colorado Inside Out, PBS 12, it's on tonight. You should watch it. She turns to me and goes, you don't have any notes. And I'm looking around at everyone else and I'm like, nope, I do not have any notes.
This is just like high school.
I'm like, but you do, can I use yours, or something like that.
Cheat off of you.
The hardest part of the show for me is at the end, and it's predictable. So I should be able to plan for this, is you have to say one like disgrace of the week and then one good thing of the week. And I struggle to find anything good every week. I'm just like, I don't know.
I think that says more about you than anything
else. Probably does. And that's exactly what Chris said, because she was like, I struggle to find something bad. And I'm like, do you get out of your bed in the morning? I mean, come on, man.
Have you seen the news?
Are you in Denver ever?
Exactly.
So that's going to play. I thought that was a good show. That we had a great young reporter from Axios and Patty Calhoun, of course, Chris Rourke. And then we had our friend Krista Kafer was hosting, filling in for Kyle Dyer, because Kyle has this, and I regret missing this last night. There was something scheduled at 5:30, big, huge deal in Denver. And by the way, anytime I hear, hey, can you come to Denver? And hopefully it's timely delivered information, but hey, can you please come to Denver at 5:30? my instant reaction, no matter what it is no, I can't.
Yeah.
And then I hear, wait, what is it? Because
yeah, exactly.
It's just
Yeah.
not, it's
So it
not.
says Denver 5:30. The answer is no.
Right. Denver already has me going, is it something free?
Yeah.
And then you say
Or get a
5:30
t-shirt.
and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Are these free Broncos season tickets or something? But this was a huge event. I mean, we're talking like ex-governors coming to this thing. And it was for Kyle Dyer, who you remember from Channel 9.
Yeah.
She's the regular host of the Colorado Inside Out. She has put together apparently this fantastic documentary on the Rockies coming to Colorado and sort of that whole, how it happened. And I got to see a little bit of a trailer of it. She showed me, I don't know, a month or so ago. And I'm like, dang, I want to see this thing. Well, last night was the big ribbon cutting on it, or whatever you folks in the media call that thing. Yeah. And everybody and their mother was here. So like, Roy Romer was there, Governor Owens was there. Cool. And then all the other, good looking political people. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So I missed that whole thing, but stay tuned. Watch that thing tonight if you can. Oh, here's a nice texter. You are quite good on CIO. Well, thank you for that. Nice. That's right.
Tell your Wi-Fi.
Clearly that would not come from her, exactly. But yeah, I get that right here. Here's just a couple other texts we've gotten. And for folks that don't know, we do the texts all the time off of the app or off of 710knus.com. And I read most of them on the air. So if you're interested in that, we do the Rumble when I can figure out how to log back on. And YouTube.
Sometimes people delete the
here's our buddy Joan. And Joan is good because she tries to prime the pump with stories she'd love to hear more about. Here's one. Did you see the Gas Stove Protection and Freedom Act sponsored by Cruz and Manchin? No, I haven't, but that's a good one to look at. Morning, George. The writers are demanding a minimum number of writers on a show and a minimum amount of episodes, regardless of the show's success, and prohibiting the use of AI. Okay, prohibiting the use of AI, I get it.
Yeah.
But the minimum number of workers, that you've lost me there. That sounds very union-y, not very, very success or merit oriented. The AI thing, did I tell you about that Chat GPT thing?
Yeah.
Buddy, it's kind of scary. It's going to replace some of these dudes. I don't know if Chat GPT can be funny. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing, is maybe humor will be the way. It's like in Terminator when they have the dogs that sniff out the Terminators.
Robots, yeah.
I wonder if that will be humor. That's going to be it. Here's one. I tend to be conscious of it as my husband, Robbie Williams, drove a Top Fuel funny car. Oh, Bandemir. I forgot to mention this.
Bandemir.
It's swan song for Bandemir time.
Yeah, it is. Now, I guess they've got another area they've scoped out.
Called DIA. No,
the parking lot. It's DIA.
It's going to be awesome. Yeah. It's going to be really good as they compete with planes.
Yeah, if it was several months ago, they could have used the parking lot just over my left shoulder before the landlords here installed the extra speed bumps, because we had some children
in this parking lot.
Yeah, we had some children that were on the weekend.
Holding. Do you think
that
was a response to the thing that happened? So folks, on the east side of the building out here where we are in Denver, they just paved it like super sweet, like it had the new asphalt smell still on it. And we came in one morning, and it appears that they could be old people. We don't know, but people with cars who love to do donuts on fresh asphalt had really turned that thing into a work of art.
Yeah. And those are the kids. Yeah. They're showing up in the weekend. That's why we now have, I think somewhere around 35 speed bumps in each.
And not the kind of speed bumps where you can still hit it going 25 and feel good about yourself. These were made by the company called K2 or something. Yes. Like you go up and down a small hill, your car bounces. I mean, you look like you are. Bam. So, you have to cut back down the far side of the parking lot to just around all these different things.
Is that what you do? That's what I do.
Every single time I do it.
Yeah, you have to drive away from the exit to go right around the back side of the parking lot in order to avoid all of the all the speed bumps, and then you can get out. But you still have another giant speed bump to go over.
They're ridiculous. The yellow ones are the worst. The black one's not as bad. The yellow ones will just rip out your transmission.
There's a set of them to get in the parking lot that have got to be about 5 feet wide and maybe 3 feet deep. So it's this giant hump
and 10
that you have
feet
to.
tall. I
Yeah.
mean, they're
You have to,
ridiculous.
it's like, whoa, boom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You almost have to like put the car in 4-wheel drive. Just
Yeah,
get up over
you
the
go
top.
Dukes of Hazzard if you hit these
Yeah.
things going north
Yeah.
of 30.
And the one coming in is the worst. The one going out is at least lower, but the one
Yeah.
coming in is
Yeah.
gigantic.
The problem is when we leave here at 10, there will be some, I don't know, I want to be very delicate about this, a-holes who
Yeah.
park along that strip that you can
Yes.
drive by that we're talking about, because we're
Yeah.
the only cars in the parking lot at this point,
Yeah,
right?
there's nobody there.
But when people they park their cars there, I'm like, dude, you're now forcing me
Yeah, to go
to
over
rip out the transmission
Yeah.
of my car,
And
jerkweed.
I'm kind of like, and I feel like they're parking back there to avoid the speed bumps as well. But I'm like, give me some love. At least give me a car space between the edge of the speed bump and where you park. You know, leave that 1 or 2, parking spaces open, because when you park right next to the edge of that speed bump, I got to go over it. You're ruining my mojo.
You're killing me.
Yeah, you don't understand.
Yeah, it's is there any
It makes
chance
me want to get out and pee on the car.
Any
I'm just saying.
again?
Yes.
Any chance we move buildings?
Probably not, because we've been in this building for at least, gosh, I want to say
When it was just old.
no, it was my lovely wife
16th birthday.
did news in this very building in the early 90s, just right down the hall in that studio over there. Yeah, well, I was working for a competing radio station. Yeah, she did news here. So we've been in this for that long.
Billy, you're breaking my heart. I also look around and see that maybe we have the kind of equipment that doesn't lend itself to being moved.
No, it's very difficult. Although there's a story when the King of Agriculture and that entire building was being moved from downtown, and downtown was beautiful. Downtown, you're on Lawrence Street, and you're like 13 feet up, 13
but honestly,
up,
buddy, if you and I had to drive
gorgeous.
into Denver in the morning, I'm not doing the show.
Well, here's the thing, though. It was difficult driving in. However, the bonus at the time, and again, you don't get this anymore. The bonus at the time is they paid for our parking in the DCPA structure.
But they don't pay for you to drive in and out of there.
No, they don't. But it's zero dark 30. There's nobody on the roads. However,
okay, going
T-Rex,
in, I get that.
T-Rex was a pain in the ass though, because that changed things all the time, and so that was more of a pain. So that wasn't too bad. But then when they moved out to the Death Star out on Monaco, the engineers might have miswired the building at first.
Oh my good God!
Yeah.
Wait a minute, you're talking about the other guys on the radio.
Yeah, the other guys on the radio.
The guys who less people listen to.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. The engineers ran all the cable up a certain part of the building, and then in order to get it, the inspector comes in and goes, "Yeah, you can't put it next to the HVAC." So they had to strip all the cables out and then run it back up the other side of the building. That was a several month delay.
Please just move this entire thing online. I mean, we just talked to Tommy about
in your
that.
Bed. That's what you just want. I know. Tom comes in here, and did you see he gloated this morning?
Oh my God, he was gloating.
Yeah,
Tom,
I love his.
Tom's going to do the show from his RV, and he's just living his best life. But to answer your question, Billy, as we've gone way long into this segment,
look what time it is.
My dream is to have my AirPods in. Yeah. I'm walking around in arguably a less than perfectly clean pair of underwear in the morning, just having this very conversation while I'm like making coffee.
Exactly.
Maybe an egg. Maybe you hear a spatula in the background or something, and we're doing the show that way. Instead, it's you and I sitting here talking about the damn parking lot.
The fun thing would be is doing it, and if we were making breakfast at the same time. That because there's this thing that I've got about experiential radio that if you are doing something that somebody else does, it does always. You have the same
within
experience.
reason, my
I know,
friend.
Yeah, within reason. But that's the idea that everyone cooks, and I've had that idea that I don't want to do a cooking radio show.
That's interesting.
But the idea of having cooking and prepping while you are doing the show, I think, is a nice connection to the audience because everybody goes through that. Everybody has that.
I like that.
I like the idea.
The breakfast thing too, and we got to cut away. I'm seriously eating into our good time here. But Kelly had brought up, folks, I just want to impress upon you. This is not how this is just we're just having a conversation. And we have not prepared for any of this crap. This is we'll be having this conversation after I sign off here in 30 seconds. Yeah. But Kelly had said, hey, could we do a remote from different breakfast places? Now that takes some coordination because you can't just show up to a Denny's or something and be like, hey, we're going to take this booth and we're going to do a show from it for about 4 hours, But I think it was sort of the idea of what the Fox News people do, but without stocking the pond. Like they go to a place where they've pre-advertised and they make sure that there are a ton of white people between the ages of, 50 and 75 in there.
And a lot of American flag.
And a lot of American. I just want to show up at a breakfast place. And, the Breakfast King is gone. That broke my heart. And to be able to sit down and have people like looking over their flapjacks at us, like, what the hell are these guys doing?
What are they doing?
And we wave them over. Come on over,
here,
Mr. and Mrs. Coloradan, or whatever your pronouns are.
What are you talking about?
Let's sit down and have a conversation. I just think that could be good radio and a breakfast I don't have to pay for.
It would be. Here's the problem, though, is that's just a benefit for you. I'm still here in this chair.
You can't do it remotely too?
Now I will be in charge of making sure this runs, despite my many mistakes yesterday and the ones I'm still going to make today.
We're in it right now. We're
Yeah.
in the mistake right now.
Exactly. Despite that, I'm kind of locked here. So when you go out, it would be breakfast for you and Kelly or whoever the other remote, or technically, if you learn how to put some of the wires together and some of the larger stuff, you could do it yourself. And it's not that difficult. And so, yeah, I think it'd be wonderful.
I just want people to picture MacGyver if that happens, where I'm like, Billy, do I cut the red one?
And that's one of the things that I have enough experience in this that, I can figure out how to get the thing on the air. I'm not as good as the wizard Kenny Danon, not nearly.
Well, nobody is.
Yeah, not nearly in his class. But if I need to get the signal on the air, I'll get the signal on the air, even if the computer is doing stuff it's not supposed to. We can break it if we have to.
We haven't hit the Alexa line in the sand of 640, but we're getting closer every day. And it's Friday. So if we're going to screw things up, frankly, it'll be any day. But I'm just saying Friday kind of lends itself to it.
It helps because the powers that be don't get to talk to us until Monday. So
that's a good point. Or they just send you a "you're fired" text later on today.
I've gotten those.
Hopefully not today. Stick around. We're going to get the Thorpe Report with all the good, legitimate local news read at a really blistering pace. And then the You Choose the News. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Going to turn it over to Billy, but I just got to tell folks that Mark came in to mock me because he said that my comment about the yellow speed bumps is dumb because all the speed bumps are exactly the same except for the color. And I'm like, well, they feel differently to me. Okay, they make my car do different things. The yellow ones are just worse than the black ones. And he disputes that. Nonetheless, let's get into the legitimate stuff with the limited time that we have. Billy, it's Thorpe Report. Make us smarter.
Hey, thank you, sir. I don't think I'm going to reach that bar today, but here's what I do know so far this morning. 86 degrees is going to be our high, 83 tomorrow. Possible thunderstorms in the afternoon, both days. Sunny and 93 on Sunday. 97 on Monday. Who knows what's happening after that? They don't know, so we're not going to cover that. Interstate 70 has reopened early this morning after police investigated a shooting near Quebec Street. Denver police tweeted shortly after 1 o'clock this morning, 2 people were shot and taken to a hospital. Conditions unknown at the time. Police are working to develop information about a suspect or suspects. I was near I-70 in Quebec. Also, we had a man that died after being stabbed during an argument in North Aurora yesterday evening. Happened around 9:30 in the evening on Alton Street between 16th and 17th Avenues. Investigators say it began as an argument and escalated to being all stabby. So that's disappointing.
Rarely do stabbings happen without an argument. You know what I mean?
Rarely,
Like it happens, but rarely does someone walk up and hey, good morning, Billy. Stab, stab, stab.
Exactly.
You know?
Surprise, stab, stab, stab. Yeah. We could ask Larry Nassar about that. Oh, wait, I shouldn't go there. Okay. A man who's been caring for adults with disabilities for approximately 25 years was arrested earlier this year on several sex crime-related charges. He's a 71-year-old Eugene Gillespie taken into custody in April following a months-long investigation into allegations of sexual abuse at a day program facility for people with disabilities. You sicko. He's also facing similar charges related to an at-risk victim in Lakewood from 2015. Just awful. We had Smokey. I'd be in favor of that one. We had a plume of smoke yesterday afternoon from a fire that burned 2 homes on Yarrow Street in Arvada. They're still trying to determine the cause and the origin. Normally, it's either going to be in the kitchen or in the garage. Just saying. That's just normally what you're finding. Yeah. I'm not saying from personal experience.
No,
never. At least possible deniability. Father is charged with first-degree murder. This is interesting. After his son, who was severely abused in 2017, then died last December. Now, this is a grand jury indictment, but the issue is the mom and the dad both were indicted in May, and they're charged with first-degree murder and child abuse resulting in death. The interesting thing for me is that this is a crime that happened in 2017, and the son who was severely impacted by this abuse just recently passed away. It's interesting they're reaching backwards and saying the injuries that were caused back then led to the death that is now.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting case. And as the details come out, would love to have your insight on that one.
That'd be interesting. Oh, wow.
Yeah. According to the Union for the Denver Public Schools principals, the firing of McAuliffe International School's Kurt Dennis violated their contract. So, of course, they're going to threaten to file a lawsuit. And finally, police are looking for your help in finding the family of a toddler. This is another strange story. He was found walking alone overnight in Brighton at the end of last week. They tweeted, Carter, a 3-year-old boy, was discovered by patrol officers around 3 a.m. in the 1900 block of Bridge Street, and they can't find the parent or guardian. How does someone not know their child is gone several days later?
At what point are you looking around like, it's so quiet? What happened? Who were we missing?
Yeah, it's like my wife and I had this rule because we had 4 kids and they're running around. We always, every 5 minutes, you had to do a head count. And it was okay if you couldn't find one, but it was not okay if you couldn't find the same one twice. That's when it was an emergency. So that was it. That was our rule. That's all the news I've got.
Buddy, I know you had to race through that, and there's plenty of other stabby, shooty things to talk about here. And by the way, I think contrary to a text that we got in, it's not National Booby Day. There is one, apparently. I Googled it, but it's not today. It's later on in August. I don't know what we'll do to celebrate that. It might be at a breakfast place. We don't know yet. Listen, stick around. We got to cut away so that we can come back and do the really good stuff. That's the dessert at the end of the 6 o'clock hour here. That's going to be You Choose the News. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Imagine the lifelong impact of a journey to the Holy Land, surrounded by like-minded travelers. Picture yourself stepping foot in iconic locations right out of history. With nationally syndicated radio hosts Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher, you'll gain firsthand understanding of the spiritual and political importance of this vital region.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher here. I hope you'll join Dennis Prager and me on an amazing journey through Israel in October 2023.
Discover Israel's vibrant culture and why this nation is such a strategic partner for the United States. Join Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher on this life-enriching Israel tour, October 25th through November 3rd, 2023. For more information, call 855-565-5519 or visit standwithisraeltour.com.
May I have your attention? Please stop what you're doing and listen. It's time for You Choose the News.
Yes, it is that time of the morning we play everybody's favorite radio news game show, You Choose the News, where we have scoured the interwebs, yada, 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 dumb stories, stupid headlines. You know how this works. Alrighty, sir. Here are your choices this morning. We're short on time. Bebes, 2 legs or 4. Headline number 2, they really need to change that slogan. Headline number 3, as God intended. And headline number 4, affordable flex or horror film setting. Alrighty, your choices yet again are Bebes, 2 legs or 4. They really need to change that slogan, as God intended, or affordable flex or horror film setting. Your choice, sir. Right?
Horror.
I got you there.
The horror.
The horror. We're going to travel to Falls Mills, Virginia for this one. This could be an absolute horror show, or it could be the most affordable flex ever. If you have an extra $1 million lying around, you could purchase your own lake. Yes, there is Falls Mills Lake, a popular fishing spot and recreational site, is up for sale. It is privately owned, and you would get this 100-acre lake, 42 wooded acres, and 21 acres of wetlands. It was built by the Norfolk and Western Railroad in the early 1900s, and I've seen the pictures. It is absolutely beautiful. If you got an extra $1 million hanging around, buy the lake. It'd be the coolest flex in the world. Hey, would you like to come over and go to barbecue this weekend? No, I'm going to my lake. So, yeah, that's what I would do.
Wonderful. 2 legs or 4, please.
Bebes, 2 legs or 4. Most Americans do own a pet, 62% of us. About a third of us have more than one. And nearly all U.S. pet owners, 97% of us say their pets are part of their family. However, 51% of us consider those pets not just to be a part of the family, but as much a part of the family as the other humans.
Huh?
Yeah, exactly. It's the idea of saying, yes, it's the idea of saying, well, I know you want to go to college this year, but Sparky's got to go to doggy daycare. And so we've made a choice, and we chose Sparky. That's kind of what's happening here.
I guess I get it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you do view them that way, but I'm sorry, but if the dog is inside the house and one of the kids inside the house and it's on fire, it's real easy which person I'm picking up, and I just gave it away there.
Yeah.
I know what body I'm grabbing. I'm sorry. I love you,
Hello.
dog.
Careful.
Still, yeah. Alrighty, final choice this morning. They really need to change that slogan, or as God intended.
As God intended, please.
Of course, as God intended. Here we're traveling to Minnesota. And recently, members of a deeply conservative Amish community won their day in court. And why? Well, they did not want to have to dispose properly of their dishwashing, laundry, or bathing water.
What?
Yeah. Now, what had happened is the government came in and said, hey, when you're just taking your dishwater, laundry, and your bathing water, and you're just dumping it over there on the ground,
yes,
it goes and leaks into the groundwater table, meaning that you and maybe some surrounding communities
buddy, I'm shuddering.
can get sick. And they said, no, God does not want us to drink the clean water. So we should be allowed to dirty and smite our own water so that we get ill. And the court said, you do you, religious freedom stuffies. So, yeah, so they actually, the thing that I can't figure out, though, and Gorsuch was the one that actually helped rule on this one. The one that I can't figure out on this is the fight to say we need to have the dirty water. That's a part that didn't connect in my brain, where they came in and they said, here's this stuff you need to put in a septic tank in order to make sure that when the water is not going to go back into the clean water, so you don't get sick later. And they go, no, we prefer the illness. It's just very bizarre for me. I don't understand that choice.
Yeah, well.
Speaking of bizarre choices, yes, that is it. That is the end of today's You Choose the News. As always, George is our perennial winner. I'm a giant loser, but today we have a brand new product for you. Yes, you can get a 20% discount on Dr. Jim Craig's Guide to Making Murder Look Like a Heart Attack. Yes, you've got to figure out the proper ratio of arsenic to protein shake, creating plausible deniability, stories to tell your potential mistress, and more, all found inside. If you order today, you get today's bonus, Hillary Clinton's Idiot's Guide to Destroying Computer Evidence. Dr. Craig could use that one. Alrighty, operators are standing by. Tell them you listen to the show, and they'll charge you full price.
I love this. So at some point, we're going to have a conversation about how you and the kids put the sponsors together at home, because I love the standard is if the kids are horrified or offended, Billy's like, and that's a keeper. We'll have to talk about that in the future. Listen, when we come back, I don't know if you've heard about this group, No Labels. They're not ours. They're not D's, but they are coming for your presidency and the other elected offices out there. We're going to talk with a couple folks, Jenny Hopkins and Joe Cunningham, when we come back. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. It's hour 2 of 4 on the George Show, 710 KNUS. Of course, at 10 o'clock, we get replaced by Chuck Kirk. We go Prager, Gorka, 11 and 1, and then back here live and local with the Deb Floor Show. I think Jimmy Harmonica Sengenberger is still filling in for Deb, and then we go with Stefan Tubbs from 4 to 7. Now, you may have heard about this group starting up, and when I say starting up, they've been around for a while. It's just they've really started to get a lot more attention and I think momentum in the media heading into the 2024 presidential election. It's called No Labels, and I've been working on trying to get some folks on to talk about this. And so we've got a national fella and a local person. And I got to tell you, as you know, if you listen to this show, I love the local stuff. I love the local connection. The national stuff, let the national guys do that. But this has a connection both locally and nationally. So coming up on the line here. And Billy, if I start pressing buttons here, you know the chances of us accidentally. Billy has just told me on my ear, please don't touch any of the buttons. So on the line with us right now from Denver, Colorado, Jenny Hopkins, and Joe Cunningham from some place called South Carolina, it looks like. Jenny and Joe, thanks for joining us.
Morning, George.
Hey, morning, George. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Let's just start with a little bit of background. I do this with everybody that comes onto the phone. Joe, first off, a little bit about your background. How did you get to be in the position that you're in now? And what's your title with this group?
So, Joe Cunningham, National Director for No Labels. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. I ran for Congress back in 2018 and flipped a red seat blue for the first time in 40 years. Served in Congress, was a member of the Problem Solvers Caucus, which is a group of members created by No Labels. It's half Democrats, half Republicans. They met every week, talk about pressing issues. It's actually the only place in Washington, D.C. where you have Democrats and Republicans regularly sitting at a table discussing our nation's problems. So got to work with No Labels through that process, got to know them. And No Labels expanded their view several years ago to be bicameral, meaning, they have Senate allies as well. So you have leaders in the House and the Senate talking about bipartisan solutions, which, again, doesn't happen unless somebody hosts it, somebody creates that forum. And as of lately, we've expanded our vision and are looking to secure ballot access across 50 states and Washington, D.C. for a unity ticket, Democrat-Republican or Republican-Democrat. If the two major nominees are deemed unacceptable by the majority of Americans, and if we have a pathway to victory.
We'll get back to that part in just a moment. Jenny Hopkins, tell us about your background. Are you a Colorado kid? What brought you out here? All that stuff.
I'm a 35-year Colorado kid. I came out as a young engineer to Hewlett-Packard up in Fort Collins, spent 25 years with HP and helped take Agilent public. Was an exec for them, left HP and moved into the entrepreneurial business. And I just grew a medical products business and recently sold it. So I am longtime Coloradoan, got engaged with No Labels about 5 years ago. I'm a longtime Republican who felt the party is maybe moving away from me. I'm still a Republican. I am a moderate one. I do like the No Labels message of, finding a middle ground. So that's my story.
Well, in terms of the No Labels movement, and I'm guessing more and more people have heard of you. You've gotten some ink in a whole bunch of different platforms. By the way, some of it positive, a lot of it people freaking out on both the left and the right, but right now mostly on the left with the idea that, hey, if No Labels is able to get on the ballot in every one of these states with a presidential candidate, does this help usher in another term for Donald Trump, or does it usher in a term for Joe Biden? How do you address those concerns?
Well, I would say you take a step back and you look at where our country is right now, where you have 2/3 of Americans who don't want to see this rematch, right? So, we don't have other options, and 2/3 of Americans are wanting a better option. And so the question becomes, who's speaking for them and who's giving them what they want? That's why we set this hurdle that if the presumptive nominees are deemed unacceptable, then we're going to give
who
Americans
deems them
another choice.
Unacceptable?
Well, you look at polling nationwide. These are polling numbers. We ran modeling and polling over a year ago, and it showed that this ticket has a pathway to victory, and it showed that the vast
What
majority of
ticket?
Americans,
What ticket?
a unity ticket, a bipartisan ticket, whether it be a Democrat, Republican, or Republican and Democrat.
But with no names attached. I mean, as you know, man, the minute like you can do the generic congressional ballot, it means nothing till you start throwing names on there. So you guys don't have a settled candidate yet, right?
Yeah, but let me tell you. Let me just say this: it creates an opening because any person who when I launched my congressional campaign in 2018, I didn't have any name ID at all, but I did polling to find out how folks felt about the incumbent and whether or not there's a pathway to victory. And that's the same thing we've done here. This is the best data we have to date, and we're going to continue to test this. It's not like we ran these numbers a year ago. We're sticking to them. We're going to continue to model this. This is a group that's been around for 12 years. So we know what we're doing in that respect.
Jenny, there are those out there who are going to say, listen, there are no principles here for this party. It's really just a party of polling, that they just poll people, find out what a popular position is, and then coalesce around that. How do you respond to that?
So perfect segue. We are launching a set of common sense principles actually just next week. So Sunday, Monday, next week, we will be launching a set of principles. So that is, George, actually in the works. And maybe just to add a little local flavor to some of Joe's comments, I do meet a lot of people who don't think the two presumed candidates, let's put it that way, are the best that we can bring forward in the United States. We think we have, I believe, and I think I have a lot of friends who believe that there are better candidates we can put forward. Our honest hope is that, my hope is that the Republicans put forward a different candidate that we can really get behind, and so such that No Labels doesn't need to have this insurance policy out there. So there really is, we are really looking at it as an insurance policy. I think Colorado is representative of a state that likes to look and see who the candidates are. I agree with you. You have to have a name on there. I do believe we tend to like moderate oftentimes. And so I think it's a message that works in Colorado. I do agree we need to have the candidates, though, for sure.
Well, Jenny, I will a little bit of pushback on that, too. If you've been here for those 35-ish years since you were 2 or 3, or however old you were when you got out.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I do. What you've seen is we have definitely shifted to the left. And if you look at that last election, the 2022 midterms, you could not describe the Republican candidates as extremists or Trumpy or anything like that. And they got beaten like baby harp seals at the polls. So this idea that what we're looking for is a more moderate person. I mean, when you talk about Colorado, what are you seeing that tells you that's a winning combination for us here?
So I was a supporter of Joe O'Dea in the Senate race. I think he was a really good candidate. He was up against a tough race. Yes, he was soundly defeated. No arguments there. But I think that message did work with a lot of people. Unfortunately, not enough. I think we're losing voters. I think we see the ranks moving from Republican to independent. Those are the signs that I'm watching for, or that I'm seeing.
Well, that's true. And one of the things I've said a million times is nobody's truly independent. They're just unaffiliated. And that's why we don't call them I's out here. We call them U's. And I think that's true because you see a lot of unaffiliateds leaning one way or the other. In fact, you and I probably know people who are unaffiliated because the parties that they're normally a part of aren't extreme enough for them. So when it comes to this particular group, I wanted to go back on one thing you said. Can you tease us at least with one of the principles you guys are going to reveal on next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever that was?
Joe, do you want to jump in with a couple of those?
Yeah, I can jump in. And like Danny said, George, these are like 30 principles, ideas. And this is the purpose of this is to kickstart a conversation, try to get people talking about these issues in terms that show that most Americans, there's some common ground, right? That's what we're trying to stake out, like how to bring people together on this common ground. Take, for instance, immigration. The vast majority of Americans do believe that we need to have a strong and secure border. Most Americans agree on that. Most Americans also agree, though, that dreamers, those kids who are brought here through no fault of their own and oftentimes can't speak, the language and the land which they're born in, deserve a pathway to citizenship. And so, when you pair ideas like that under a certain idea, you find that there is a lot of things that we can agree on, and why can't we work on those things and move forward?
I get that, but what's the principle that would flow out of that? Because I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate that. I think you're probably right. What's that principle?
It shows that you can pair security with compassion and empathy. it shows that Americans are good people. They're good and decent people, and we can be strong, but also, be strong by showing care for others
But
too.
so how would that principle be articulated? Or is that a principle or is that a platform? You see what I'm saying? Is it a position on a platform? Is it a principle?
We're putting this out there again to kickstart a conversation, and it's our honest hope and belief that other elected officials or politicians look at this and say, okay, this is where the majority of Americans are. I'm going to try to take this and craft it into legislation, or I'm going to try to lead on this. We hope people co-opt this. We hope people run on this or take this and turning into policy. But these are ideas that can be weaved into policy. And these are some principles. But again, the purpose of this is just to try to tamper down the divisive rhetoric and bring people back to a spot where we can actually start talking about solutions.
Jenny, let me ask you, when you look at Colorado, are there, and the focus is always going to be on the presidential race. And there are those actually who were part of No Labels, like William Galston, and he had opined in, I think, the Wall Street Journal. He left the party in part, or if it's a party, he left No Labels in part because he disagreed with the idea of tackling the presidential race. But for Colorado, do you see races below that level where no labels can play a role and maybe even win a seat? And you know what, Jenny, forgive me. I probably should have asked the question, has No Labels ever had a candidate on the ballot, and have they ever won anywhere?
So just to start out, we are not a party. And in fact, that's part of the good thing to me about No Labels is I stay in my party, Joe stays in his party, and we come together for causes and to try to make things better. So we are not a party, don't plan to be a party. We are putting forward a unity ticket as an insurance. And so
how would you show up on the ballot here?
So we will show up as a No Labels party on the ballot.
Okay.
But we don't intend to be a long-term party. So it is a temporary thing. It would have a R and a D on the ticket. It is a unity ticket. But so we're not trying to form a third party, though. That's what we want to be really clear on. Within Colorado, we have in the past taken some positions with candidates who are moderate to support them in the general election or in the primary election. So we support the more moderate candidates, but we don't plan on having this notion drop down to within the states. Right now, the unity ticket is only at the national level.
Are there any other races below the presidential where No Labels has shown up and I guess supported a candidate or had one elected?
George, answer your question is no. This is one ticket, one time, and it's not our intention to offer the ballot, offer any line down ballot. We're solely focused on this race. There are members. Correct. Presidential, vice president.
How are you going to pick those two people, from each party?
We're in the process of outlining that over the next few months. And how the timing of this looks like is you got Super Tuesday in March. By then, traditionally, we know who the Democrat and Republican nominees are. We have our convention, No Labels convention, in April in Dallas, Texas. And at that point, we would have decided whether or not to nominate a ticket between Super Tuesday and our convention in April.
Was Dallas on purpose because it's a blue city in a red state? I mean, is that where you were going with that?
No, it's a great city, and I'm sure there's a lot of thought that went into selecting it. I'm sure Jenny would prefer to be in Colorado. I probably would prefer to be in South Carolina, but we're going to Dallas.
I wonder how you're going to navigate the minefield of which party candidate, because you're saying you're not asking people to be unaffiliated. You're saying you stick in your party, I'll stick in mine. How are you going to decide whether the top line person will be a D or an R, and whether the vice presidential person, who has to be from the other party, will be the D or the R? How are you guys navigating that?
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously keeping a close eye on what's going on with Trump versus Biden, and where this pathway to victory lies, because there's nobody who's committed one way or another. Obviously, if we're nominating a ticket, we're going to put forth the best chance at winning, the best pathway to victory.
Do you think that based on the polling you've seen that you would take more from one party versus the other, more from a Biden or a Trump?
Well, our modeling that we've done, our polling shows that we draw equally from Democrats and Republicans. And obviously it cuts into a lot of independents, but it shows that it pulls evenly. And I'm not sure that pathway to victory exists. And that's why we've done this modeling on Trump versus Biden, because there are so many disaffected voters in both who aren't excited.
When do you think you would know, by the way? You have your thing in April out in Dallas. At what point do you look at whatever polling? And again, you and I have to, and Jenny, you and I have to have a conversation about the fact that polling is so imprecise. And maybe, if you looked at the 2016 or 2020 elections, polling didn't do us a lot of favors on some of these races. I mean, we would have had a President Hillary Clinton if the polling had been right. Reliance on the polling as a measure of support for a party or a position or a person and all that other stuff. When do you decide that the polling that you have is enough for you to decide to pull off the ballot?
Well, George, hey, first of all, I hear you. I mean, my polling showed in my race in 2020 up by double digits, and then I fell short by a point. So I get it more than most how inaccurate polling can be. So I understand that 1,000%. However, it's still the best factor we have as far as determining, voter support and such. But there's a lot of runway between nominating a ticket in April, and if it doesn't, you got to give it time to breathe. If it doesn't grow legs, it doesn't garner the support that because you talk to most Americans, you talk to your neighbors, a lot of your listeners are thinking this is a good idea. This is something that I would support. Most people, the average American, love this idea. Now, whether or not they embrace it after it's launched, we're going to see. But if it doesn't take hold, then we can pull it down well into the summer. We can pull it down. But again, we're not interested in throwing the election one way or another. We would only be in it to win it.
Where are we, Jenny, with getting on the ballot in Colorado? And don't you have to have a candidate to get on a ballot? You couldn't just have like a placeholder, could you?
So we are on the ballot already here in Colorado, George. We are on the ballot currently in 4 states. No Labels is, and Colorado is one of those states. You are correct as well. There are, I think it's 19 states. Don't hold me to that.
Yeah.
That you do have to have a candidate for, but Colorado is not one.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yep, we are on this ballot in Colorado. We are working on the others. No Labels does have a really good plan mapped out to have this insurance policy. So we'll be on every state we need to be prior to a candidate in time to go forward.
How do you select? Are there delegates that go to the Dallas thing? I mean, Jenny, how do you go? How do you get to go?
We do have delegates. We are recruiting people that are interested in following. We do have organized meetings here in Colorado that I would love to do a plug for, but I'll wait a minute. So we have a group of 20 delegates, 10 delegates and 10 alternates already identified here in Colorado that are interested in seeing this through, that are committed to seeing it through. They are a mixture of R's and D's and I's, or U's as you call them, but yes.
When you talk about the decision to pull off of the ballot at some point, even as late as the summer, is it whether or not you think you can win, or is it whether or not you think you may, create an environment where one or the other candidates win? Like, for instance, if your polling tells you by the summer, hey, it looks like we're driving an outcome that's going to result in Trump winning, let's pull off the ballot. Or is it, if it happens, we're driving the Biden victory? Does it matter who it is to you, or what?
There are so many dynamics, George, as you know, and next summer is a long time away. I think we are really trying to play it day by day. It's an insurance policy against what I believe. And I think a lot of people are in my camp are 2 less than optimal candidates, and we'll see how it plays out. There's so much that can happen in between now and then. We just can't predict every possible outcome of it, but we're trying to have alternatives available.
Listen, I'm not interested in seeing Biden-Trump part 2 either. I mean, I think that's right, that most Americans, my guess is, would love to see other options. But the Grand Canyon-like gap between that and becoming active for some other alternative that isn't only non-traditional, but almost indescribable at this point, and at least until you launch whatever these principles or platforms are, that's tough. That's a tough thing to bridge.
But look at all the attention we've been garnering. Right? It's just a momentum that's moving. Again, our hope is that it drives either party to put forward different candidates. I have a preference. Joe probably has a preference.
So let's hear them.
But
I'd love to hear the preferences.
well, no, I would like to see the Republicans bring forward, a stronger set of candidates, a stronger candidate that's more representative.
Well, who
Joe
do you like that's out there now?
You
If
know-
they're not out there running, then I'd love to hear. And in part, what that will tell me and listeners is, okay, this is where you come from the Republican family. Do you know what I mean? Like, go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't have a name that I'm going to put out today. Sorry to do that, but I don't. But I am interested in listening and learning.
Yeah, Joe,
Yeah.
do you have somebody you like, Joe?
No, any names that have been floated right now is just speculation. And my focus, honestly, is getting on the ballot in these 50 states. Because unless you're on the ballot in 50 states plus Washington D.C., then it's tough to have a pathway to victory. And we got time for that too. We do. We have time. But I would imagine if you're describing, George, like it'd be somebody who could bring the country together, put country ahead of party. And to your earlier question or earlier point, you've seen polling data. We start off not like at 3 or 5%, like 20% was one poll I saw recently of voters that would vote for this type of ticket right off the bat. Now, obviously we nominate people. It changes. It does change the dynamics. However,
it changes it a ton, right? I mean, as soon as you give a name, especially a name that people associate with anything else, instantly those numbers change dramatically. It could be great, though. I mean, they could change better, but it could be worse. Like I remember, this is a little bit different, but Colin Powell, one of the most popular public figures out there. If that guy announces he's a Republican candidate for president, he loses half the country. I'm making that number up, but you know what I mean? Like once you say I am this or I am for this, people already start formulating opinions.
1,000%. Again, but it's like that anytime. But the fact is, where are we right now? We're at a point right now, and I don't know if we've seen this in history, where 2/3 of Americans don't like the current options. So again, going back to your question, don't those 2/3 of Americans deserve a better option? I mean, isn't that what this democracy is about? We have a constitutional right to get on the ballot and provide Americans with an alternative.
Does the candidate that you're describing have to subscribe to each of these poll tested positions?
No. And look, there's 30 principles we're putting out.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if you find many Americans agree on, on every single issue that any party or any, right? And I always echo what former mayor of New York City, Ed Koch, said, which was, if you agree with me on 7 out of 10 things, vote for me. But if you agree with me on 10 out of 10 things, that's be a psychiatrist. It's okay we don't agree on everything, but the two things are important. Obviously, tone is important, trying to bring people together, and putting forth policy that's common sense and that's rational. And that's what we try. That's what we're trying to do in this common sense booklet.
Well, listen, once you release these things, I'd love to have you guys back on periodically throughout this future campaign, because I don't know where it takes off. I know that you have a K2-like hill to climb on this thing, and maybe this is as much about laying the groundwork for the future, and I mean beyond the 2024 election, as it is this election. But I'm fascinated by it. It's populist in that it is, I guess, poll driven. That makes me feel like it's more populist. But I'm interested to see where you guys go with this thing. Hopefully you'll come back on.
I'm looking forward to it, George.
Likewise.
Yeah, Jenny, listen, hopefully we run into each other somewhere, not in a courtroom, and you come up and tell me, hey, you had me on the radio, and we'll stay in touch that way as well.
I would love to do that.
Thank you. Hey, that's Jenny Hopkins, local person on the, what's your title, Jenny? Do you have like state something, czar?
I am a state co-chair. Yes.
Who's the other co-chair?
There are actually 5 of us.
Sweet goodness.
Yep.
Who are they? Do we know the names?
You do know. Roger Hudson is one.
I know
Tony
Roger.
Mayer, Nancy Moore, and Dennis Peru.
Yeah, Roger penned a column that actually got my attention, and that's when I started reaching out, and I'm like, Roger, please come on air. But Roger, sadly, Jenny, way too smart to subject himself to this interview. You apparently drew the short straw out of those 5.
I'm a lot more fun than Roger.
That could be true. Jenny Hopkins, Joe Cunningham from No Labels. Thanks. We'll have you back on in the future. I'm going to ask people right now, by the way, after we get off the phone with you, their reaction to it. Do they think it can win? What do they want to see out of a party like this? Jenny and Joe, thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye now.
Thanks again, George.
Hey, I am interested in your feedback on this. Give us a call at 303-696-1971. What you've heard, and again, this is only an initial conversation. We can't cover the entire No Labels platform, and they haven't really honestly launched the platform yet. It sounds like that's coming next week, and I'm anxious to see what they put out there because I think they're right about some of the polling stuff. It's just there is such a gap, practically speaking, between polls and ballots. And the difference is sometimes the name associated with it. I'm interested to know what you guys think at 303-696-1971. Can No Labels win? Can No Labels work? I was sort of hopeful that they would have some candidates down ballot too, where it might be easier to make inroads and maybe even capture a seat or two to give them some other momentum. But it sounds like they are heavily focused on trying to change the trajectory of the presidential race coming up here in 2024. Hey, listen, stick around. When we come back, it'll be you, me, some of the texts that are coming in. Here's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. My thanks to Jenny Hopkins and Big Joe from South Carolina, Cunningham, who came on to talk to us about the No Labels Party. I'm just interested in knowing what you think. Is this the kind of thing that could work? And maybe more specifically, is there a ticket that you can see growing out of this that you would support? I'm still a believer that the polling is, one, inaccurate, but largely irrelevant until you start putting a name on it. I mean, if you'd ask somebody, listen, would you want to have a new car for $100 a month? You might say, sure. And then once they tell you it's the Yugo, I don't know what model. Do you remember the Yugo? The Yugo Screw Yourself or whatever it's called. You might be like, nah, I don't think I want that one. Or it's a Pinto. You're like, nah, I don't think I want the Pinto even for $100 a month. Putting the name on something matters. Let's go to the phone lines at 303-696-1971 from Denver. Dan, you're on 710. What do you think?
Hi, George. Okay, yes, I think this should, as I said in the call screen, this should resonate with conservatives here in Colorado, specifically those in the Front Range. When I moved to Colorado in August of 2002, we already had nonpartisan or no label ballots that I remember. I thought, this is strange. What's this?
Yeah.
I mean, from St. Louis, Missouri, where I was from, the Democrat Party always proudly walked neighborhoods and put those hang flyers on doorknobs. I mean, you didn't vote for them, but at least you knew who they were. And I just want to ask people, how has being nonpartisan, how does that work out for we conservatives here on the Front Range, the most populous part of the state of Colorado, the one that controls the state?
Are you saying that, yeah. Are you saying, Dan, that we have ballots that go out that don't contain the party affiliation? Because I haven't seen that in a long time.
For Denver County offices, yes. For state and county offices, no. I mean, county commissioners or for state rep, state senator, and the statewide offices, governor and such, those are labeled. But the ones in city and county of Denver, where the bulk of the, or a large part of the bulk of the population of the state is, the control of the Front Range, that controls Colorado.
Well, but those are nonpartisan races, though. Those are actually nonpartisan races.
Right. But I mean, look at the policies for these quote nonpartisan. Every single one has been a leftist since I've been here. I mean, nothing is nonpartisan. You're either in favor of socialism or you're against it, one or the other, or some degree of it. But you're one or the other. You're not nonpartisan. That's a lie. Nobody is without values, without opinions. Come on, if you've got a heartbeat, if you've got a working brain, you have an opinion on whatever it is. Pick your topic. I don't care.
Do you?
I mean, that's just that's reality.
You think you could be someone who's not a Republican or not a Democrat and share views from each party, or do you think nope, you are either a Republican or you are either a Democrat?
I am a constitutional conservative first and foremost, and I think the Republican Party is the one that reflects that's the closest. That's why I vote that way. I mean, I disagree with them vehemently on let's see, term limits. And one other thing, I will stand with Bill Clinton and his against term limits. I'm completely against that. I'm completely against that. I mean, no, I'm in charge. The government works for me. I decide who is put in or
your
put back
position on that. Dan, if you had to think of outside of your comments, if you had to think of a ticket, an R and a D, whatever order you want, that you might support, I'm not committing you to it, who would that be?
An R and a D. You mean a specific candidate?
Right. For the No Labels Party, that's what they're trying to come up with. And I think that's going to prove to be impossible, but an R and a D.
Yeah, that's not reality. Okay, so you want what? A name? Like you named a couple of cars or something?
Yeah, right. Like, are there candidates out there that you could support on the ballot that aren't Biden or Trump that would come from each of the parties, a Republican and that? I mean, any ticket you can think of that you would support like that.
Let's see. Okay, since I heard you say before I turned down the radio, the last thing I heard you say was they're focusing on the presidential, right? They seem to be focusing on the presidential. That's it. Okay, so presidential, not U.S. House or U.S. Senate, or governorship. I guess I would say Ron DeSantis if Trump does not win the nomination. But I mean, I'll vote for him if Trump does not win the nomination. He becomes the party standard bearer. I will vote for whoever it is who becomes the standard bearer. I'm not going to go off on a third-party tangent rail. Look at what happened when people did in 1992 with Ross Perot and his charts. Look who we got. That's how the country was. That's how we got Bill and Hillary Clinton, was because of Ross Perot.
And Dan,
that's what happens when third parties come into the two established parties and cut them. It always divides the conservative vote, not the leftist vote.
Dan, thank you for the thoughts on that, Dan. I will say this: the exit polling after the 92 election showed that, at least from exit polling, and I don't know how valuable that is, that Perot drew from equal amounts Republicans and Democrats. I know that's not the narrative that we like or that we've heard for years, but that's what the exit polling showed. Jennifer, you're on 710 KNUS. What do you think, Jen?
Hey, good morning, George. I liked what I heard, but sometimes you ever hear something that it's like, it's just too good to be true. Like, I'd like to lose 15 pounds in a month, but that's too good to be true. And so
you could do it, but it would involve a great deal of pain. Like, you would have to limit your diet to a single raisin.
Right. And no drinking. So that's kind of out. But anyway,
I bet.
But don't you think we're kind of moving this way towards considering that third party candidate? It's been coming on for a long time. When you talk about ranked choice voting, or we've seen other third party candidates kind of get attention. And there is this unrest in the country where people aren't happy with Trump and they're not happy with Biden, that choice right there. I think eventually we're going to move into a realm where we do start giving third-party candidates really that attention that they could get.
I understand where you're coming from, but I disagree. And I say that because I think far too many people mistake the 47% of Colorado's unaffiliated as some sort of cohesive unit of people. It's not.
Right.
I mean, if Republicans and Democrats are cats that are trying to be herded within their parties, the unaffiliated voters are cats on meth lit on fire that they're trying to there's no chance you can get them all on board. I think that's a mistake. So when Joe Cunningham says, we've got this polling that says this, and we've got this polling that says that, okay, I get it. People are dissatisfied with the Trump Biden ticket. Count me amongst them. But in no way do I think that leaves the door open for some other yet to be named individual or individuals to gobble up the kinds of votes necessary to make a real difference and even win the race. It might be able to make a difference at the margins and impact a close presidential race, but I don't think they can win. And I don't think we're moving towards that. I think what we're moving towards is more of the irrelevance of the parties, not a third party, but the death of parties, altogether.
Yeah.
And then the ranked choice voting permits an unaffiliated person the opportunity, with the right funding, the right backing, the right message, to perhaps grab up some of these seats. But it's never going to start at the top. I mean, in my opinion, and I'm not a political genius, these guys need to start somewhere else and start grabbing up races at a lower level. I don't know if it's sheriff or DA or House of Representatives or state senate or commissioner, but in my opinion, that's where they should get their first couple wins so that they can, when I ask the question, has anybody ever won from the no labels thing? It sucks to hear Joe go, nope. Like, oh, okay. Well, you guys are winners,
I don't know, but at the lower level, I think voters tend to not be as partisan. Like when you're talking school board, well, school board's gotten more partisan, but like a city councilor or something like that, I know Republicans who will vote for a good, moderate Democrat. So I think at the lower levels, you have more fluidity. The Trump-Biden thing is a perfect opportunity to test this. And even if they lose, right? Even if they lose, I think it's another step towards the country considering, hey, what are we doing with the two-party system? The only thing I don't like is when you get out of two parties, you don't have a true majority. In other words, you don't have somebody that represents more than 50% of the population. And so, I struggle with that a little bit, but I don't know. I'm tired of the screaming. I'm tired of, hardline partisanship. I liked what they talked about with immigration. Yes, I am a strong supporter of firm immigration rules and protecting our borders. But at the same time, I do have compassion for people like the Dreamers who are caught in that situation.
Jen, I hear you, and forgive me. I want to keep this conversation going. I got to cut away for a break here to bring up our good buddies from Alpine Planning when we come back. But I love this topic, and I'm happy to continue this after the top of the 8 o'clock hour. I think it's something that's worth discussing because it's not going to go away. It'll be around. You asked me to make my prediction. My prediction is they are not going to be on the ballot in all 50 states. Not because they can't do it, but because something is going to occur within whatever pulling. And later on, I'd ask them, who are you using for your pulling? Who are you trusting to help you guide you to make these decisions about what your principles are? I just don't think it's going to work this time around. Maybe they're playing for the longer game. What do you think? 303-696-1971. And we're going to cut away for a break. We're going to come back, get smarter by a guy named Brian in Alpine Planning. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Imagine the lifelong impact of a journey to the Holy Land, surrounded by like-minded travelers. Picture yourself stepping foot in iconic locations right out of history. With nationally syndicated radio hosts Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher, you'll gain firsthand understanding of the spiritual and political importance of this vital region.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher here. I hope you'll join Dennis Prager and me on an amazing journey through Israel in October 2023.
Discover Israel's vibrant culture and why this nation is such a strategic partner for the United States. Join Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher on this life-enriching Israel tour, October 25th through November 3rd, 2023. For more information, call 855-565-5519 or visit standwithisraeltour.com.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. It's that time of the show where we get to be made smarter by one of the smart friends that we have out there. His name's Brian Gray, his company, Alpine Planning. Brian, how are you, my friend?
Good morning.
How are you doing?
All right, George. All right, we're going to get you back on track here, all right?
Kaboom.
All right, we got the Dow up 162 points so far this morning. We got the S&P up 13 and the Nasdaq's up 65. The Nasdaq has just been on a tear, but the thing that's pushing the market right now is we got big banks. They're posting strong earnings this morning, led by J.P. Morgan.
Right on.
They had a great second quarter, and then Wells Fargo also had a good second quarter. One thing I wanted to touch on right now is, a lot of times people come in the office for their second opinion, and they're like, well, I can just do this myself. And yes, you can. But Vanguard just came out with a study, and they said if you take a hypothetical $500,000 investment, working with an advisor, that would grow to $3.4 million. If you self-managed your money, that portfolio would only grow to 1.69 million, or 50% less. So I guess the meaning of this study is if you're somebody that's doing it on their own, interview some people, go see them, see if there's somebody that you think you can work well with as you go into your retirement years. But it does pay to work with an advisor. So we're looking for a good day, George. We want to finish this week off strong. The markets are starting to come back a little bit. We're at 34,000 on the Dow right now. We were as high as 35,000 not too long ago. But we'll just wait and see what happens. And we'll be thinking of you this weekend as you become a Swiftie and go to the baseball game. And we'll talk again on Monday. I don't know what you were thinking, but
at the time I didn't know there was this damn concert. I was just like, yay, the Yankees are in town. I'm like, come on, man. It was just such a mistake. I will say this. I have a degree in economics, Brian, and I can't tell you how many times I start thinking to myself, should I do this or should I do that with my money? And in the back of my mind, I'm like, God, I don't know the answer. I need to reach out to a financial person. So your point is well made. And I think I know what I'm doing, and I still doubt myself.
Sure. That's very common. What do they say? Paralysis by analysis.
That's it.
You got to have somebody pushing you along the way, just giving you the roadmap and making sure you stay in your lane. And that's what we try to do over here.
Amen to that. That's why Alpine Planning is a comprehensive financial planning firm committed to improving your long-term success, financial success, investing. It's a matter of trust. They are prepared to earn yours. Call Brian, Amy, Gabe today, 303-843-0918, 303-843-0918. Talk to you soon, Brian.
All right. Have a good weekend. See ya.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Woodbury Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC and registered investment advisor. Alpine Planning Group and Woodbury Financial Services, Inc. are not affiliated entities. 14 West Dry Creek Circle, Littleton, Colorado, 80120.
George Brauchler, 710, KUS. George Brauchler back with you halfway through the Friday show before we give you to the weekend, and then we come claim you back at 6 a.m. on Monday. My thanks to Jenny Hopkins and Joe Cunningham. Joe's the national guy calling us from Charleston, South Carolina. And Jenny, local person from No Labels. She is one of 5 state co-chairs of the No Labels. And this is the struggle they're going to have too. They're not a party. She says, we're not a party, but we do show up on the ballot as a party. And she says right now that they've secured a place on the ballot in Colorado for the presidential. I didn't know this, but Jenny says, yeah, you can secure a place as a party on the ballot and name your player later. Some states, she said 19, you have to have a named candidate. They don't have one yet. They're going to have to navigate that pretty quickly here, in my opinion. They said they're going to have their national convention out in D-Town, Dallas, the smaller D, big D, of course, Denver. And they're going to pick 2 candidates there, one from each party. And I just think it's interesting because, and I didn't get a chance to ask him this, I'll do it in the future when Jenny comes back on, but it's the difference between bipartisan, which is an R and a D, and nonpartisan. And it's just hard to know which direction they're leaning. But one of the things that they've talked about is, hey, we've got this polling, and this polling tells us this, and this polling says Americans aren't happy with the choices that they have in this presidential election coming up. I agree. I feel the same way. I'd love to have different choices, but once you put a name on it, it changes the dynamic. So the question I'd ask of you is, one, is this something that could work? Is this something that could take off? The 47, 48% of Coloradans, and folks, within a year or two, my guess is it'll be more than 1 in 2 registered Colorado voters are not going to be affiliated with either the Dems or the Republicans. Is this the kind of thing that can work? And what would it take? What's a ticket that would attract you? And if the ticket is too specific, like I don't want to say a name, then tell me what the issues are. What do you think are no label issues that you would support? 303-696-1971. Stephen's been great hanging on. Stephen from Denver, you're on 710. What do you think?
Well, I think I got a label for them already.
What is it? What do you call them?
The naive nicks. Have they been in hiding? Take a stand. Pick an issue, take a stand, and you will have people labeling you. This is ridiculous.
What did you think about their example about, hey, we want to have secure borders, but we also want to acknowledge that the Dreamers are not at fault for their having broken into the country and all that other stuff. Does that feel to you like a label issue?
Absolutely.
In what way? Tell me how you would read that.
Well, there's purists. I was the guy that said, the most scary person on earth is a true believer.
Right.
And there's a lot of them out there on both sides, and they're going to get, whether they like it or not, or whether it's wrong of the people labeling them, you can't avoid it. It's going to be it.
Give me an example of what
you want
you're
the border
about.
secured. Well, you want the border secured, then you're a racist. You're a xenophobe.
Those are the labels you're talking about.
Well, yeah. Isn't that what they're talking about?
Well, I think in part, like they're trying to get away from that. But I think in part, too, they're trying to move the discussion away from, well, that's a Republican idea. That's a Democrat idea. But you're right. There are other labels out there like pro-life, pro-choice. You're a xenophobe for wanting to have a secured border and all that. Is there any version of this that you can think of that would get traction? I mean, is there any version of this where you could support them?
No, they're dreamers, they're idealists, and it's impossible. I absolutely believe it's impossible at the same level that I believe that the new mayor is going to be the same as the old boss.
You think MMJ is going to be the same as Michael Hancock?
Yes, I do. I think that it's hard to have that D in front of your name and go to the fundraisers and have the people in your ear and if I don't want to go to treatment and I don't want to go to work, I'm not gonna, and I'm gonna live in my tent, and it's gonna continue.
That's probably going to happen, by the way, for Billy. But let me throw this out to you. And I've gone to the No Labels website, and they've got their ideas. It feels to me like they're trying to become this populist party, but premised on just polling. Do you know what I mean? Like they're going to pull their issues. I don't know. So, but here's some ideas. They have something called 6 bold ideas to rebuild our democracy. And number 3 on the list was term limit Supreme Court justices. Is that the kind of idea you could get behind? Do you support that? And is that a Republican or a Democrat idea?
Well, I would say right now it would be a Democrat idea.
Because of who's in the Supreme Court?
Correct.
Is it your sense, though, that that's a good idea independent of that?
I'm not sure. I've never really thought about that too much to answer real quick.
Here's another one. I'm just going to read you. There's more detail in this, but I can't get through all the pages in one sitting here. It says a 21st century fairness doctrine. Holding a federal broadcast license is a privilege and a public trust. The government, which essentially means the American people, should demand a modicum of honesty, transparency, and fairness in return. What do you think about that statement?
Well, I think it's right out of Orwell, the Ministry of Truth. Who watches the watchers?
My God, man, you hit the nail on the head for what I thought when I read that is, I get it. Once you say modicum of honesty, who do you empower to make that decision? How are you defining honest? I mean, it's one thing to say 1 + 1 is 3, but most of these things are, who's going to do that?
Yeah, well, nobody can do that. I mean, these people are ridiculous. And I listen to your show a lot, and they'll come back on and just like I said, take $1,000 and pretend you bet it on the mayor being the same old mayor. Bet $1,000 with yourself that these people go nowhere, because people want action, and they want a candidate, and they want positions. And these people want to muddle along and take a stand by not taking a stand.
What do you think about the idea of acknowledging that party leads to polarization, and it's nothing you could ever outlaw? You wouldn't want to do that, but just taking party affiliation off the ballot?
Ridiculous.
Why don't you like that? Tell me why you don't like that.
I don't like it or dislike it. It's just ridiculous.
But you say ridiculous like it couldn't happen. It could. I presume at some point here, and maybe it's this next time. I don't know. I do. Here's what I think. I think that 47% of Colorado's electorate have said, I don't want to wear a jersey. That tells you that there is some interest in trying to move away from whatever these party things are. So could somebody offer up a petition? And if they offered you one, Stephen, and said, hey, Stephen, we've got this thing. We want to put it on the ballot for Colorado voters to decide whether or not we should strip party labels off of every candidate going to the ballot. What would you say to that? Would you say, I like that idea, or I don't like that idea? And if you don't like it, tell me why.
Well, I here's the deal. Whatever you run as, whatever you espouse, you'll be given that. You'll be given that label. I mean, it's ridiculous. I just don't. It's so idealistic. It reminds me when I was 19 in 1970. You know, a bunch of dumb hippies with all of our stupid shit that we were believing. Stupid stuff we believed in. You know. It's ridiculous.
Let me ask you, Stephen, do you think it could have an impact, though, on the knee-jerk party voter? And so when I ask that question, what I'm thinking of are the people that, you know, the low information voters that your community canvassers and activists show up at their door and they're like, oh, hi, hey, can we just make sure that you vote your ballot? They haven't done any research like you have. They don't know the issues. They don't know the candidates. They don't know anything. What they do know is there's a bunch of people with a D by their name. And so they drop the votes for the people with the D by their name. If those things are gone, your low information voters, especially on the down ballot races, lose the ability to just simply guess and pick, I'm going to go with the D. Do you think that could have an impact on some of these races?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. It's just not going to be. This is how the world should be, and not how the world is. There's going to be Democrats. There's going to be Republicans, leftists, rightists.
Ever room for a third party?
It could possibly happen, I think, but it's just, I don't know. It's just people want the world the way it should be, and they don't face the world the way it is. And you know, I'm gonna vote for whoever the Republican is,
regardless of whether it's DeSantis or Trump or Haley. You're voting the R.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stephen, I appreciate the call, man. Thanks for getting us kicked off. I agree on that last point for sure. I can't think of someone that they could offer up as a D that I would vote for. And that, I think, becomes the problem for the no labels folks, right? Like they have this big rally, they do their convention out there in April in Dallas. And at some point, they're going to have to announce these are our candidates for president and vice president. And one's going to be a D and one's going to be an R. And if you're a Republican out there or a conservative, can you ever envision throwing a vote for a Democrat who is listed as no party? Can you ever envision doing that? I can't. I'm trying to think of who that Democrat is that I would throw that vote for over the idea of a Republican. And the other things that are at stake, what do you do with the Supreme Court nominees? I think we just saw that whatever your position on DJT is, those 3 Supreme Court justices that he was able to get through, thank you, Mitch McConnell, were big difference makers. What do you do with that? How did the no labels people approach that issue? And I'd love to ask them too about the abortion stuff. Like, are you going off of polling? Because pro-life is, for a lot of folks, is faith-based. It's morality. They don't give a damn what the polls say because the church isn't about polling. And by the way, I've had people ask me that before too. Why doesn't the church take an approach that's more popular to get more people? And they're not in the business of giving you the second best advice to save your soul, right? That's not what they do. Similar here, like I don't see myself voting that way, but do you? 303-696-1971. If there was a Democrat at the top of the ticket with a strong vice president, and listen, it'll never be Trump. He doesn't want to be vice president. He's not built to be a number 2, right? Same thing with DeSantis. He's never going to be a vice president. Is there some ticket you can envision that you would support? Here's some right here. Text coming in. RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Ted Lieu on the ticket. First off, never, ever, never, never would I cast a ballot for Ted Lieu in any form on any ticket for any race. Never, ever. That dude threw his support by someone who wanted to be district attorney for the largest judicial district in the state, who at the time had single chaired, that means led the prosecution of like a DUI. That's it. No, thank you. If that's your judgment, my friend, I really don't care to entertain the idea of you having more authority. That's not going to happen. Here's Joan. 47% that do not want to work to be part of the electoral system. A third party is the road to socialism. Look what happened to Canada with the orange. I don't think so, Joan. I don't think a third party is the path to socialism. You're going to have to explain that to me, why that would be true. But I agree with this, with the no labels people on this. I'm kind of burned out on how toxic and poisonous politics has become. And I don't blame just political parties. Social media has made life worse, not better, worse. But there we are. And again, I'm going to take a page out of Stephen's book. It is the reality versus the hopes and dreams. Social media ain't going away. It's always going to be here. The only people that can change it are the consumers. Social media is not going to police itself. It's not going to change itself. It's up to us. And the question is, will we? And I'm actually not sure we're capable or willing to do it. I'm not sure we really want it. I mean, I think there's a large number of us out there who love the toxicity, who love the poison. And so I get where no labels is coming from. I really appreciate the idea that 2/3 of Americans, I don't know if it's 2/3, it's certainly more than 50% in my mind, just don't want to see Biden Trump part 2. What? That's the best that America has to offer each other and the planet Earth. Those two guys are the best we have. Man, what does that say about us? So I'd love to think there were alternatives, but they're not coming from someplace other than the R's or the D's. I just don't think that's possible. You are not going to get unaffiliated voters to coalesce around anyone, probably ever, which leads us to a discussion of what the alternatives are. And so Stephen thought it was ridiculous. I disagree. If you were to strip the party affiliation off of ballots and just had names on those ballots, now, you and I know that, hey, there would still be huge advertising. The campaign folks would find a way to convince everybody that this person's a D, vote for this person's an R. That's true. But you and I also know that there are a ton of low information voters out there who keep voting for Phil Weiser. I'm kidding. Sort of. But they keep voting for people just based off of their party affiliation. If you take that away from them, do they guess wrong? Do they guess contrary to their party? Do they actually sit down and go to the internet and look and try to discover more information about a candidate? I don't know. But I like our odds better that way in this state, in Colorado, than I do with the current system. Another texter in here says, what about Joe Manchin as VP? Could you vote for a Republican presidential nominee who had Joe Manchin as a vice presidential nominee? I don't know. That's very intriguing. It depends on who the presidential nominee is. But I don't dislike Joe Manchin. I think he was naive to believe the Biden administration and the Senate leadership when he signed on to their garbage, blow up the economy and spending bill in exchange for changes in permitting. That never happened. It was never going to happen. And the Republicans said it all along. They said, you're going to be a sucker, man. Your party doesn't care about you. They care about your vote. And that's the truth. So, but other than that, I don't dislike Joe Manchin. Could I vote for him on a ticket? I kind of felt that way about, you remember when people were talking about John McCain and Joe Lieberman on a ticket? Now, John McCain's nobody's version of a conservative, and Joe Lieberman is nobody's version of a progressive or a liberal. Could those two have been successful on the ballot together? Nope. No, they couldn't have. I don't believe that. I don't think that's possible, man. I just don't think there are enough people to coalesce around there. And as much as we look at these individual issues and pull on them and say we want secure borders, but we want to forgive the dreamers, that's never going to get anywhere, folks. Not under the current scheme of things. And I don't think a third party changes that. But I do like the idea of stripping away party affiliation. The other thing that we have now is this idea of this ranked choice voting. And I want to get somebody on who is interested in and smart enough to talk about that. But the ranked choice voting thing is an effort to moderate candidates. And so what it seeks to do is to give you alternative votes so that you vote for the person that you hate the least. So you might say, hey, in this first round of voting, my first line choice is the Republican. But if they're not going to win, who's my second choice? Who's the person I hate the least? You know what I mean? Because you're not going to vote for the D. But you might vote for somebody else who's on the. That's where I see this going. Ranked choice voting, which is kind of like a moderate wolf in sheep's clothing, sneaking up on the ballot. And I've gone back and forth in my head about this. Is that a good or a bad thing? Is it reflective of the community or not reflective of the community? At the end of the day, we want people that represent the greatest number of folks. Now, I know for the hardcore right wing out there, they're certain, and same thing with the left, they're certain that they're right. They're certain that they're correct. And if their guy doesn't win, it's either because their candidate was wrong, the election was rigged, we didn't get the right information out. I just think you have to come to the conclusion at some point, your population doesn't agree with you on these issues. That's why Colorado's never going to be a pro-life state. Never. I just don't believe that. So when you look at these kinds of things, ranked choice voting, I don't like the idea that there's a scheme in place to moderate candidates. And yet I ask myself, is that what the community would want? Would they support a more moderate candidate? I mean, we had one on the ballot. We had Joe O'Dea, who was definitely a more moderate Republican than Hank Schwanger was. And that dude got thumped. And please don't call in to tell me Hank Schwanger would have done better. He would have done worse. He would have gotten more crushed. Interesting. 303-696-1971. Look, there's a bunch of texts coming in. I can't read them all right now. Let me cut away for a break after I tell you about Dan Caplis. Dan Caplis, who's everybody's version of a conservative and a good community dude. He's the kind of guy, though, and I know this just from having worked for him about 16-ish years ago, he just stops caring about those things when it comes to fighting for victims. We have represented people that have views vastly different than our own right here on this station. We've represented those people not because of the politics or even in spite of the politics, but because they were victims. And that classification of person is the kind of person that Dan has spent a career fighting for. So, you know, he and his partner, Bobber, work at this of course, they work in the better office space after I leave them, but this fantastic office space out there somewhere in Greenwood Village, I think is where it's at. Beautiful, beautiful building, but it's also so welcoming. When you go out to visit Dan, after you call him and check out the website, you're going to look around and say, And these are guys that are dedicated to kicking butt for us. They don't invest in the stupid stuff. They invest in us. They invest in the case. I would give Dan a call, and I would recommend people to give Dan a call. If Billy got hurt in a car accident, I would say, one, hey, I'm really sorry that happened. Two, I'm sure it was speed bump related. That's a reference to the 6 o'clock hour. And third, I would say give Dan Kaplis a call. It's 303-770-5551. Because you know that Dan is going to take it seriously, and Dan's going to keep fighting as long as you say keep fighting. That's just how he's built. He's just not going to take the quick cut and run, cash the quick check. And he's not going to try to convince you to do that either. He's going to tell you, here are the pros and the cons of moving forward this way. What do you think? And then you get to be in charge. I mean, that's just how it works over at the Kaplis Law Firm. So check them out online at dankaplisLaw.com. Kaplis is Kaplis. But you can also call them at 303-770-5551. Talk to some of the great folks that are out there and get on the phone with Dan. Go out and meet Dan and Bobber. And my guess is you do that, you're going to be like, yep, you are my team, and I want to be part of that. That's Dan Kaplis at dankaplislaw.com. When we come back, 1, 2, 3, I mean, it's well over 10, 15 texts that are going here. I'm going to read these, but I want you to fill up the phone lines and tell me what you think. Can no labels work? Is there an issue that you think transcends the partisanship here that you could support? Joe Manchin for vice president? Interesting. 303-696-1971, George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS, just a small town girl right here on a big time radio station. It is 710 KNUS. Lots of texts on the topic of the no labels thing, and I want to go through some of them. Our buddy Joan says, I think you're gathering stories for Complaining Monday show. No, that's not it at all. Here's another one. I voted for Steve Hogan when he ran as a Democrat for mayor of Aurora as a fiscal conservative in the 80s. I also voted for a guy I knew named Augustine, I might be saying this wrong, Jazzo, that ran against Pat Sullivan for Arapahoe County Sheriff in the 90s. I haven't seen a Democrat I would vote for since. Another recent text. Yesterday was the 5th anniversary of Trump and Putin meeting in Helsinki, where Trump took Putin at his word about not being involved in election interference and showed great deference because he was negotiating for Trump Tower Moscow. Also yesterday, Biden welcomed Finland and Sweden into NATO after years and centuries of neutrality, but there is just no good choice in the coming election for no labels, I guess. That's Tom from Denver. Another, Jones wanting to know if the dentist got bail. He does get bail. It's like $10 million cash, but he's not going to make that. Another text. If you believe in America's founding and its principles, who could vote Democrat after witnessing the destruction they have caused this country? Border, criminal. This must be a series of things with no commas. Border, criminal justice, education. Yeah, listen, I'm no Democrat. I'm no fan of the nominees for the different parties that the Democrats have advanced. I think by almost every measure, you can imagine how Colorado could be in a better position today than it is right now with different leadership under the Gold Dome. I think the same thing about the White House. But that's not the issue with the no labels thing. The issue is there some ticket that you can envision? And some folks had put in here like Romney Ryan or something like that. And one, that doesn't work because the no labels people insist on having not nonpartisan, but bipartisan folks, R's and D's. And you heard Jenny say the same thing. Jenny's still a registered Republican, Jenny Hopkins, who was on with us from that Boulder area, that she's still a registered Republican, but she considers herself a moderate one. And that kind of lends itself to a whole bunch of other conversations we've had repeatedly on the show. And that is there such a thing? Is that just a rhino? And I don't want to get into that because I think that's silly talk. But I do think it's important to know whether or not you could vote for a ticket that had a Republican and a Democrat on it. And which one do you think could win? Even if you couldn't vote for it, which one do you think could win? I mean, is there a Republican? Is there any ticket that has, here's what I'm worried about, Michelle Obama on it? Not that I could vote for. I couldn't vote for that ticket. But could it win? What's that ticket that could win? Could a Republican, I'm trying to think of who a Republican would be that would show up on a ticket with Michelle Obama, or vice versa. If you had Michelle Obama in the top spot and you had some other more moderate Republican, maybe Larry Hogan, former governor, I think, of Maryland. If you had Larry Hogan on a ticket as the VP to Michelle Obama's president, could that win? Not could you support it? I doubt you could. I couldn't. But do you think that could win? Do you think there are enough people out there that are either affiliated or unaffiliated that are just so tired of the partisan toxicity and fighting? And it becomes, by the way, a winner take all environment, right? Like all we do is try to get into power. And when we're not, we try to stall the other guys until we can get back into power. And it's sort of, I don't know. There's a part of me that loves that model because it means government is less effective. But there's a part of me that doesn't, because then when someone has that trifecta of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, then they tend to go kind of extreme. And we've seen that here in Colorado. 19 members in the state House and a handful of senators in the state Senate, with the governor and the AG and the Secretary of State that we have. You cannot tell me that the policies coming out of there are better for Colorado. You just can't tell me that. I would much rather have a Republican Senate to at least, and I think Polis would too, by the way, at least to trip up the goofiness that's taking place on the left under the Gold Dome. Here's another one. My argument for Lou is because he has demonstrated the ability to collaborate. Yeah, I don't like him. Here's another one. Mitt Romney. He swings both ways. I think you mean that politically. Otherwise, it's super awkward. Here's another. I'll try to call in a bit. I'm trying to see this thing here. So this is someone that was listening to Jenny and Joe talk. I hear a couple of Pollyannas talking. Next, they'll be asking for millions of dollars. These people aren't going anywhere. They're spinning their wheels, and the American people don't go along with what they're proposing. I'm sorry, this is nothing more than old news. Well, I don't think it's old news. I do think they're going to be more prominent this year than they've been in the past. And Jenny sort of said that. Look at all the attention we're getting. I think the poll is going to end up with vote anywhere. And I don't think they end up, I think what they end up doing is they see that the polling probably shows them what George Will says, and that is that they're probably going to help elect Donald Trump. And you know who else says that is a guy named William Galston. He was one of the original members, I think, of No Labels. He bailed on them because he thinks that they're going to help reelect Donald Trump. So maybe if you're a Trump person, you are definitely in favor of the No Labels. Here's another couple texts. The No Label Party reminds me of Brewster's Millions. Richard Pryor's character ran a campaign for none of the above. It does kind of feel like that. Another one. Nothing good will come from new generation of voters or politicians. Look at Denver, San Francisco, New York City, etc. All of these new, young, smart politicians, all of those in quotes, by the way, are ignoring their oath to the Constitution in the nationally, I think they mean in the nation, and destroying cities locally. People are selfish, spineless, and clueless. I like your optimism, George, but it's over. Well, what's over? You mean America's over? Is that what you're saying? Or are you saying it's over for No Labels? Be interested. What does that mean? Here's another one. No interest in Biden calling up military reservists. You know what that's a reference to is that the Biden administration, through the request, I think, of the chairman, the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, has authorized sending 3,000 troops over into Europe, I presume, as not backfill, but some sort of support for the efforts going on there in Ukraine. I don't want a single American boot on the ground in Ukraine. If that's avoidable, that's what I want us to do. But they're talking about authorizing 3,000 to go over there. Can't do more than that. Only a certain number can come from the active duty ranks, but for reservists. Let me see. Here's another one. Someone texted in, Tucker and Tulsi. Man, that would be okay. I'll bite. What do you think about a Tucker and Tulsi ticket? Now, Tulsi Gabbard, who was a Democrat, she's a veteran. She still serves, Army Lieutenant Colonel, serves in the state of Colorado, by the way. Hawaii resident. She was here for the Centennial Institute's Western Conservative Summit. I got a chance to meet her. Seems awfully nice. She seemed tall to me. I don't want her to be taller than me because it makes me feel uncomfortable. But she seemed awfully nice. But she is willing to go out there and talk the conservative stuff. Could you support a Tulsi and Tucker ticket? That's a lot of T's. That's the triple T, a Tulsi and Tucker ticket. And does it matter to you which T is on top? To continue on with the alliteration there. Tucker and Tulsi, top of the ticket. Who could you support? 303-696-1971. Another one suggested DeSantis and Ryan. Here's what's funny about that is DeSantis and Ryan, if you're thinking of Paul Ryan, they're both Republicans. I know a lot of folks disagree that Paul Ryan is a Republican, but he is. And could that count too? It says, this is our old topic about let me get back up here. Scott and Robert Kennedy Jr. I presume that's Tim Scott, the senator from South Carolina, and Robert Kennedy Jr., who is the Dem opposing Biden right now. Man, is that guy being pushed by Fox News. Dang, he's on a lot. He was on a lot today. And I got to say, I'm impressed with his physique. At his age, guy's got to be 98 or 99, something like that. Dude seems to be looks like he's in great shape. But this is also a guy who's part of that part of the party. I was going to say fringe. Yeah, I'm going to say it. Fringe part of the party that thinks that the chemicals in the water or food or stuff are turning people gay, which, by the way, if that were true, we should take those chemicals. This is how we defeat our enemies. And we just simply inject them into the water supply in China and Russia in some Jason Bourne kind of way. And then pretty soon, in a generation or two, they're all gone. right? Because they've wiped it. They can't reproduce anymore because everybody's turned gay. I don't know if that's the plot of the next Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2, but it could be in there. Here's another one, MIT. I'm not sure what is that Mitt Romney that you're talking about there? 303-696-1971. This no labels thing. I'm fascinated by it. Here's some of the other things that they have talked about. These are their 6 bold ideas to rebuild our democracy. And they feel like platitudes that once you get into the details, how are you going to pull this thing off? So here's one. Number 1, create a new political infrastructure for pragmatic candidates. What? A new political infrastructure. I don't know how you do that. We'll take a look at the details here. Number 2, allow strategic targeted spending. Often derided as earmarks, this is actually a critical part of the give and take required to strike bipartisan deals. So basically allow earmarks. That's what strategic targeted spending is. So one of the platforms, at least of this document from No Labels, is more earmarks, please. Number 3, term limit Supreme Court justices. That's kind of self-explanatory and maybe the only one that is. Number 4, I asked Stephen about on the phone, a 21st century fairness doctrine. Anytime you inject government as a vehicle to determine what the truth is and hold people accountable to it, count me out, man. There's no chance that's going to work out well for anyone. I'm not sure. Listen, I don't know if this is real or not. Someone texted in, I would vote for Tulsi on top. I don't know. I can't tell if that's silly or not. Listen, there's more of these. There's 2 more. I'll read them to you, and we'll get to the text. We have Sandy on the line. Sandy, I want to give you as much time as possible. So let's do this. Let's cut away for a break. When we come back, it'll be Sandy, and it'll be your text and me right here on 710 KNUS.
Imagine the lifelong impact of a journey to the Holy Land, surrounded by like-minded travelers. Picture yourself stepping foot in iconic locations right out of history. With nationally syndicated radio hosts Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher, you'll gain firsthand understanding of the spiritual and political importance of this vital region.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher here. I hope you'll join Dennis Prager and me on an amazing journey through Israel in October 2023.
Discover Israel's vibrant culture and why this nation is such a strategic partner for the United States. Join Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher on this life-enriching Israel tour, October 25th through November 3rd, 2023. For more information, call 855-565-5519 or visit standwithisraeltour.com.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Going right to the phone. Sandy from Longmont, you're on 710 KNUS. Sandy, what do you think?
Hi. Well, I don't know, but I have been for several days wondering what you think about what's going on with Tuberville and how the Republicans are acting as far as the military is concerned. You spend a good part of your life with the military. Do you think it's right what they're doing, holding up promotions?
I still do, by the way. I'm still in our National Guard.
I know you are. I know you are.
I don't like it at all. I mean, some of it's selfish, but some of it's pragmatic. I don't understand how this makes sense to say we're going to hold up the leadership and the progression of the leadership for the military at any time, let alone at this time, off of these issues. These are important issues. Don't get me wrong. It's not that I'm opposed to Tuberville and what he wants. It's not that. It's that linking these two things together, I think, sucks.
Let's face it, Senator football coach should never have been elected. He doesn't even know government. He's just being vindictive. I think the Republicans are trying to see who can out nasty who. I mean, if Pence is really serious about the fact that he thinks women should carry a non-viable pregnancy until they can expel it on their own, that's dangerous, George.
Well, I don't want all of government to revolve around the issue of pro-choice or pro-life. As important as that issue is to folks, we've seen what it does on the ballot. We've seen how people handle it. But I just don't like the linkage of the military to the provision of that care. The transgender piece, maybe that's different. I don't know. I don't like the idea that we use the military to accomplish political goals. I don't like the linking of those two things.
No, you're right. And I think transgender military, no, that's, no.
And
you can't serve the military if you're concerned about changing your.
Yeah. You know what? You have got us started, Sandy, on a topic that might carry us through the next hour, and I can't thank you enough for that. Thank you for doing that. Sandy has said some things, brought up some questions. Do you agree with Tuberville? Do you agree with Chip Roy about what they're doing regarding abortion, transgender, linking them to funding and promotions in the military? 303-696-1971. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. It's the final hour of the final show of this second full week of July. We're going to hit the middle of the month sometime this weekend, and you're wrapping up the first half with us right here on 710 KNUS. My name is George Brauchler. It is the George Show. Sandy from Longmont called in and asked a question. We'd been debating what to talk about on this thing, and you know, there's so many good issues. I do want to talk about cocaine in the White House, because there's something bigger at stake here than the Hunter piece. We'll get to that in just a moment. But Sandy called in and said, hey, you know, what do you think about this Tommy Tuberville, senator from Alabama, thing with holding up the promotions for the military, pending some sort of change in policy and funding for abortion stuff with the military? And as you know, the military provides, I think, military members who are stationed in states that don't have access to abortion the ability to travel to other states and get those abortions. You can disagree with that. You can not like that. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure that that is a good enough justification for linking the military to that political issue. That, I think that's a precarious thing. And here's why I say that. And we're Democrats and Republicans are very good at opening up a Pandora's box and then later on decrying the fact that hey, there we are, right? So, for instance, in this particular case, it's the abortion issue and how the military funds giving access to soldiers who end up needing to travel out of state and to access abortion services. Okay, I get it. You can say, hey, I'm a pro-life guy. I don't want my tax money. I understand all that stuff. But why would it ever be limited to just that issue? I mean, can't you see in the future linkage between the military, whether it's the promotions of generals and admirals, to some other political issue? So, and right now, with the Republicans at a near 50% in the Senate and with the slight majority in the House, they're able to advance them. But can you imagine what kind of damage can be done in the future if the minority in the Senate were able to hold up confirmations for the military, or as Chip Roy is doing in the House, offering amendments that might hold up the funding under the National Defense Authorization Act for certain social and political issues? I don't think we want the military tied to the debate on those social issues. I don't think we want that. That's a debate that has to be had in Congress, no doubt. But I'm not sure I want generals and admirals making decisions like that. I mean, the most, I guess, is the Secretary of Defense. I get it. The president's the commander in chief, but I'm talking about institutional commitments to different social policies. 303-696-1971. Jay, you're on 710. Jay, any thoughts on that military topic, my friend?
Yes. Was watching some liberal media last couple of evenings, much to my chagrin, and they're all very Twitter-pated about being out of munitions. That's their big talking point last few days.
Yeah.
And they're talking about cluster bombs, which are not munitions. They're actually landmines that lay there for years and wait for your eye to step on them. It's disgusting. If we were out of munitions, let's just say that we are, Vladimir Putin must be just sitting back licking his chops like some sort of art.
Why do you think that?
True? Well, he loves to destroy everything in Ukraine. Pretty much everything he's hit is civilian targets. And if we can't provide munitions to Ukraine to fight back, then that's to his advantage. And I don't know what's going on with his private army over there. I think that was a big psyops with those guys driving to Moscow to pick up their paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I made up about that. I made that they're going to pick up their paycheck from Putin, whatever it is, gold. I don't know what's going on.
Well, Jay, I have my worries not so much about how this impacts Putin, but how it impacts our potential ability to defend Taiwan from further Chinese encroachment. I've heard the same stories you have. I've read those same things about, hey, our field artillery supplies are low, some missiles and all that stuff, and that the cluster bombs are an attempt to offset that. I'm less worried about the cluster bomb issue being a bunch of mines that just lay there. I'm less concerned about that because we have the ability to identify, locate, and defeat them. I mean, that's part of what you do with the mines in the modern era anyway. It's not like World War II. But I do worry about that, but not for Russia. I'm not as concerned about the Russia piece. I am concerned about our ability to respond field artillery-wise to any sort of Southeast Asia or the South China Sea action. That to me is more troubling.
It is. very, very much so. And if you have you studied the Asian? They do a lot of war games over there.
I've looked at it. It was just a year ago this month that I wrapped up War College, which was a 2-year academic endeavor and a Bataan Death March of reading. But there was a lot of stuff we did, as you can imagine, focused on Southeast Asia and the South China Sea specifically. And I was just there. I was just in Thailand and Laos and Cambodia within the last couple months with my daughter. So I have some sensitivity to it. But can I just convert you into this other topic to discuss this before we move on? And that is when you hear Sandy ask about Senator Tuberville holding up the promotions of generals and admirals and all this other stuff, and you see Chip Roy along with some other Republicans on the other side trying to offer amendments to the NDAA that would make it hard to pass. What do you think of those things? Do you like that tactic? Do you think, hey, if we need to do that to accomplish our goals, we should? Or do you have some sort of reluctance to link the military to those issues?
Well, possibly. I spent a lot of time at the War College as a trainer, and frankly, my brother was a commander there. My brother was a commander 10th SF and the dean of the Army War College.
When was he the head of the 10th SF?
30 years. Otto Carson. I'll share his name with your producer after we get off the air. You'll know him. And his office was just beautiful because it's full of armament from every war.
Wow.
This was a place where the Western, the guys that discovered the West, I mean, they came right through where the War College was. They had the Indian guide, and they came out west. So, come on, not think it's the Frenchman. Anyways, that is such a fabulous facility. But let me say this about the holdup: the type of people that I see, even while Trump was in office, in the military, and I've worked for so many commanders from 4 stars down to just some great people. These are paper pushers. These are absolutely not war hardened individuals. The Marine general that Trump brought in, he's great. Yeah. But we need fighters just like Trump and people like yourself that will, are not afraid to step
But does
outside
that
the
change
box.
the way you view then what Tuberville's doing and holding up the promotions and stuff?
Perhaps. I don't know all the facts that they know, being on the defense side, any more than I can speak to the fact that my first stress down was Robert T. Harry's the 4-star commander of Peter Sonoran Space Command. I worked directly for him, and he stood on the top building 7 at Peterson. You ever been there? Top floor, and told us a little story about what's going to happen with the Russians. This is 1981. And they were coming after us like you would not believe. They were bugging and terrorizing. They put the all kinds of items in the new embassy that was in West Germany, and they were just attacking us like the Chinese are. It's the same thing, but different. I'm not afraid of Russia at all. I mean, they're in the dark ages. That's not an issue.
I kind of feel the same way, man. They are mischief makers, but they have revealed themselves through this Ukrainian thing to be outdated, both in tactics and in resources. And I agree. I agree with you.
Yeah.
The Chinese scared the bejesus out of me just off of sheer numbers and resources.
There's not a craft or a device that we have out there that there isn't a Chinese part on it. Let's just start right there.
Yeah.
Let's just put that stake in the ground. I don't care if it's a ship. I work with a guy that designs all these Navy SEAL attack devices. Most of those are made in China.
Yeah.
They're basically Polaris KTM off-road vehicles. I'm sure you've seen them in your training. Most of those parts are made in China.
Hopefully that doesn't mean they can impact how that they operate now that they're over there. Can I ask you one other question, Jay, before I cut you loose for your great weekend? And that is, I wanted to talk about the cocaine in the White House. Now, everybody's had their shot at this thing, and I've kind of laid low hoping that we were going to come up with an answer here. Like, certainly we're going to discover who left cocaine in one of the most secure buildings on the planet Earth, and it turns out we're not going to. What do you think about that whole situation?
First of all, when you enter a military base, as you know, any place, let's say a military base, everyone in that base would be on lockdown. Everyone would take tests. Everyone would take blood and urine tests. Everybody that went in that building would be tested from the time the Bidens supposedly weren't there, which they were there, and the 3 locations of cocaine were at. The facility would be shut down. None of that happened. This is all just another baloney story. We know whose it was, or somebody was bringing it to him. He's been living in the White House just like he was living in his daddy's house, paying him $25,000 a month to live in that place on the beach.
I'd like that. I'd take that job. Joe
How would you
Biden
like
can
to
be
have a
my
son
daddy
pay you
for
$25,000
$25,000 a month.
Well, how would you like to be the father? 25 grand a month. Your son pays you. And you know, a little joke that we made up about all those papers at the office, all the papers by Joe's Corvette, is that when Hunter ordered Chinese food, he would, if you want to hear, Hunter orders Chinese food at the house in the papers. And the text goes like this: okay, your twice cooked pork, and there's a meaning to the twice cooked pork, is on the way. We are definitely headed your way with your Chinese food. Please leave the garage door open, the copier on, and the vet out of the way. We just need a few more copies.
Yeah, that's
enjoy
right.
your twice cooked pork. And that white powder that you enjoy so much, we will leave it on the back of the trunk of the car.
Oh,
that's where we're at. That's where we're at. So that's all I've got to do is make shit like this up, because all this thing is just driving me nuts, George. I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
And I do feel like our country is definitely out of control, and we're headed for a landmine if we don't get these people out of control. I really do.
Well, Jay, I appreciate it, man. Thanks for advancing the conversation. And at some point, and I'm sorry to, I'd love to hear who your brother was a commander out there. For the 10th group, a guy that just retired, who I was in ROTC with, a guy named Isaac Peltier. He had been a commander of the 10th group, God, some years ago, got promoted to general, and then since hung it up. I think he's got 3 kids, 3 daughters that he's helping to raise now. And all. Good dude. I like the military connection, and I appreciate that part of the conversation. And I'm glad we segued into this, though, because, and Billy, you've got some sound on the cocaine stuff, I think, that's out there. We were trying to track down something that Congresswoman Boebert said that sounded pretty impressive. We just haven't been able to find it yet. Billy, what do you have so far? Listen, I've got my own concerns about this. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I know that there's a lot of speculation out there. And Jay was part of this too, where he's like, we know who the cocaine was for, even if he didn't have it, because he wasn't there. And I don't think he was there. Was he at Camp David or something like that? And my thought is, first off, why is he allowed at Camp David? I mean, I don't care that he's the president's son. Why is that guy allowed at Camp David? That's your own security risk right there. But the bigger question for me is, how did this happen? Now, you can conclude that it's a conspiracy, and I'd love to have that conversation with you. But for me, I believe them, right? Like, I will take them at their word that they can't find out whose cocaine it was. How in the hell is that possible? How did we let the White House get to the place where, and if you've never been to the White House, you probably don't know this. You can't just like walk up and knock on the back door and be like, hey, I'd love to take a look around. Can you show me the White House? It doesn't work like that. It's completely secured. Like, get one of your friends, dare one of your friends after they've had a sufficient amount of alcohol or gummies to scale the front fence of the White House and just see what the reaction is right there. There's a back sort, and when I say back, it's kind of behind it. I don't know the directions, but it's catty corner really to the White House, but it's part of the property. There's a building there that you have to go through where in advance, typically in advance, you have your names given to these people. Like when I did a tour of the White House, I did it through, I can't remember if it was Ken Buck or Corey Gardner or someone, but they hooked me up with some things. I had to give them my name, I think social security number, all that stuff. I then showed up to the building at the designated time because you just rarely can just wander in there. And then they check your ID. They got dudes in the suits and the ties and all that stuff sitting there behind the glass. They've got the whole building is surrounded by dudes dressed like SWAT operators. Some have dogs. Some are just walking around mean mugging you. And you go inside there and you just take for granted that every single step is captured on video somewhere. Right? Like, are there parts of the White House that the public has access to that you do not want to be monitored? I don't think so. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they had signs on the bathrooms, which I never got to use in the White House, that said, you are being monitored. Don't tap more than once or something. I don't know what the thing would say, but you know what I'm saying? And so we know definitively every single human being that has gone inside the White House over the course of a day. And that means we know going back weeks and months and forever. My guess is somebody could go back and tell you the day I went into the White House, whatever it was over the last year or so. Actually, it was more than that because President Trump was in office when I was there. My guess is they could go back and tell you the day I was there. How is it possible? How is it possible for somebody to show up, go in, and by the way, there's a screening thing there. You can't smuggle guns in, but apparently they don't have any drug-sniffing dogs at the front. My guess is they do now. I'm guessing that the standards have changed for gaining access to the White House, and it's always the bad apple that ruins it for the rest of us. But how is it possible we can't track down who it is that there's no DNA, there's no fingerprints, and for people that are like, that's crazy, that's not crazy. Fingerprints are so fragile as it is, and we don't find them on everything. The DNA thing, God, you want to be optimistic. You think it's easier to leave DNA, and I'm a little more surprised by that, I suppose. But that's not dispositive either. But you're telling me we can't go back through every single person that was in there? And Jay's right about this. On a military base, if something happened like a gun went missing, a rifle, AR-15 at the time, we'll call it an M16A2 is what we use, but you can picture an AR-15, M16A2 or what is now an M4. If one of those went missing, the base would go on lockdown and ain't nobody coming in or off of the post until they find that thing. How is that not true for cocaine in the White House? And it's either this combination of incompetence, a far less security than we ever thought possible, or it's a permissive attitude towards drugs. And either that permissive attitude towards drugs is driven by this Hunter Biden thing because we know he's a drug addict, or it's just the general ideological position of the Dems that it's just not that big of a deal. We don't need to know. I don't know. 303-696-1971. Gary from Denver's on the line. We got other calls coming in. Let me do this. Let me cut away for a break after I tell you about a superstar named Mitch Floria. And then we got texts coming in here too. Mitch Floria is a guy who got here from Romania, from communist-controlled Romania under Ceausescu, and started a family, started a business. I'm not even sure it was in that order, by the way. And both have just excelled. He's got these great kids. He's got a wonderful family, and their success is not by luck. It's not because he was owed anything. It's just because of hard work and that old American ideal of putting your nose to the grindstone and getting it done, and customer service. Guy still believes in the handshake and looking you in the eye. That's why he begs you to come out to his place to meet him. One, he wants to show you all the cool stuff they do with countertops, whether it's the quartz, the marble, the granite, whatever it is. He wants to show it to you. But I'm telling you, when you meet this guy, you like this guy and you trust this guy. And that's how he's built this business. So many people reach out afterwards, and I'll run into them somewhere, and they'll be like, "Oh my God, that guy, the counter guy. Yeah. We used Mitch. We love Mitch. We've referred Mitch to others." Well, that's what I'm doing for you. I'm referring you to Mitch. And he loves 710 listeners. And if you tell him you're a George Show listener, a 710 listener, he's going to say, here's what I'm going to do for you that I don't do for others. I'm going to throw in the bathroom countertop for free with the kitchen countertop package. Or if you're just doing one countertop, he'll throw in the sink for free. Who does that? That's a guy that wants your business and wants to prove to you that he's going to give you the best product out there on the market. There are very few reasons to not call Mitch if you're in the market for upgrading your kitchen or your bathroom. So you give him a call at 303-386-5919, 303-386-5919, or you can check him out at theartofgranite.com. That's theartofgranite, 4 words all put together.com. When we come back, Gary, Eddie, all the texts that are coming in. George Brauchler on the George Show at 710. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Listen, there's cocaine in the White House, and nobody, except apparently the coke dealer who had it, knows how it got there or whose it is. And I know we speculated about the Hunter Biden thing and all that stuff. Happy to have that conversation with you. But the bigger thing for me is, okay, I'll believe the Secret Service. How freaking embarrassing and incompetent is that? In fact, if KJP isn't getting crushed every single day with tell me how someone can sneak a controlled substance into the White House with absolute impunity. This is if you can't protect the White House from drug dealers, who are we protecting it from? 303-696-1971, going right to the phone lines. Gary from Denver, you're on 710 KNUS. Gary, when's the last time you did coke? No, I'm kidding. Gary, I'm kidding. What do you think about all this?
Well, I had a Diet Coke for breakfast.
Different. That's different.
Oh, okay.
What do you think about all this?
Well, I think it's at very worst, just embarrassing. I saw an interview with a former chief of the White House security last night, and he explained that they have very rigorous security over things like anthrax and those kinds of powders, but they don't have the same level of security for
drugs. Like what, though? I mean, how do you distinguish between cocaine and anthrax? I remember the process a bit. I don't remember them having me pass through some sort of a sniff gate or something like that. Like, how can he say that?
He didn't go into detail, but, but anyway, that's what he said. So I don't know. I've never been in the White House. So I assume they might have, I don't know, dogs or something, but you've been there. You tell me.
I remember dogs outside for sure. I don't remember dogs going inside the building. This is going back since when Trump was in office. So, it could have been 2019 before the COVID or something like that. So a little bit ago, but isn't it a cause for concern? I get the embarrassment. I agree with you, but isn't it a cause for concern that somebody can bring in a controlled substance and leave it, and we don't have the ability to identify who did it, even though we know every single human being that's gone into that building?
Yeah, and he explained that it was a blind spot in the cameras, and it was 0.3 of a gram, which is really, that's a very tiny package.
How much would you pay for that, Gary, on the street? How much would you pay for that? I'm kidding. I don't know that you know. I know that's not your teener or anything like that, but
no.
But isn't it crazy that there's one, a blind spot, but that two, this person just happened to find it?
Yeah, I'm more curious in how they found it than anything. I can imagine, a tourist coming in and realizing, oh, I have this very minute amount of powder. I don't want to bring it into this area because they won't even let me bring in my cell phone, so I might get searched in there. And they just drop it off and they go about their business with no intent of picking it up because it's such a small amount.
Hold on. Nobody leaves their coke behind. Nobody.
I disagree. When it's 0.3 of a gram, that's not enough to get you high for more than 10 minutes.
Hold on, man. I don't know if you know anybody that does the coke or is addicted. We're talking about people who will lick the mirror. Okay, so there's no chance they're going to let coke just sit in the White House, and then later on in the day they're wolfing down a Big Mac or something, and they're like, "Oh my God, I left my coke in the White House." I don't see that happening.
I do see that happening. There's a lot of people who do coke, but they're not addicted to it. Especially people who might be touring the White House.
I guess I need to know what else was left behind. Like, did they take the coke out of their pocket but took everything else? I mean, how do you leave just your coke behind?
Well, you just leave, you drop it off with your cell phone. When you're leaving, you pick up your cell phone, but you don't pick up the coke.
I can't imagine, by the way, somebody pulling cocaine out of their pocket, realizing they've done it, right? Like maybe they wandered into the White House and they're like, I've got cocaine. And then just like, I'll forget about it. I could see them intentionally leaving it like, damn, I don't want to touch this stuff anymore. I shouldn't have brought it in here to begin with. I forgot it was with my whatever. I can see that. I cannot see forgetting the coke.
Okay, maybe I wasn't clear. I agree with you. I think they intentionally left it, and that, that's what happened. It just, that to me, that's common sense tells me that's what happened. I'm really not too concerned. They're gonna, obviously they're gonna improve their blind spot on the cameras, and let's face it, I'm not too concerned about drugs in the White House. I mean, if they're in there, fine. As long as there's no evidence that the president isn't doing drugs.
Honestly, watching Joe Biden, you gotta know he's not on coke. There's just no chance of that. But let me ask you this: how do you explain away the fact that later that day Hunter Biden called the lost and found? No, I'm kidding. He didn't. I made that up, Gary. That never really happened. Gary, thanks for the phone call. Gary's line is open at 303-696-1971. Eddie, you're on 710. Eddie, what do you make of all this?
Well, my understanding was that Hunter was in the White House before they left for the vacation. I think a fair question would be, Mr. President, would you be willing to have your son submit to a drug test? Because I think that supposedly can tell you if you've been doing drugs for the last 30 days. And I don't think he would dare do it because I think the guy still is high on cocaine.
Yeah, but let's pretend for a moment he consents to a drug test or something, and it comes back positive. How does that link him to that cocaine in that specific place in the White House?
It wouldn't. I just would put that question to him to embarrass him.
Yeah. You're right. It would embarrass him. And by the way, someone else just texted in and said, news report before Gary came on said it wasn't 0.3 of a gram, it was 2 grams of powder. Well, that's legit. That's a sellable amount. Yeah, 2 grams is a lot.
And Gary must not know anybody that does this stuff, because I can guarantee you don't just lose 2 grams of cocaine.
No way. That's a deliberate decision there. That is a deliberate decision. Yeah. And I can get where some people are coming from with this idea that they got in there and that's how they do it. They leave the coke in there. And then when Hunter's on a tour, he comes by and I can understand that people logic that. I don't think that happened. I could more likely see, and by the way, I think Hunter should not be allowed in the White House. I think he should not be allowed in Camp David, but I can see somebody going through the little metal detector or whatever, getting to the place where they're emptying out their pockets and then having that pee-pee moment where they're like, sweet mother of God, I brought coke in with me. You know what I mean? And then just quickly leaving it. Like, I don't feel so good. I don't want to be part of the, or something. You know what I mean? I can see them freaking out.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Just a side note, I would love to have you do a show. I think they're just sentencing this guy that shot all those people in that Jewish synagogue.
Oh, yeah. Is that today? Are they sentencing him today?
Well, I think he's up to determine whether he's up to the death sentence. But how does it happen that something like that occurs? And we are 6 years later deciding this stuff. This justice system is broke. Give me the old West where they hung him about 3 days later out in front of the courthouse. What a joke.
I do not mind an accelerated system for death, but I want to make sure that the due process piece runs its course. I have no faith in the idea that we're getting more due process for the defendant and the convict just simply by stretching it out 6 years, 12 years, 15 years. By the way, that 6-year case, that guy isn't going to get death then. That's just when the sentence gets rendered. He won't be put to death for years more.
But just the fact that it takes six years for him to be sentenced I just think that it's obscene. There's just no.
It doesn't feel like justice. It does not feel like justice. Eddie, thank you for the phone call. Billy's got something I can tell because he's put on his ears.
Yeah. What did the texter? What did they say as far as how much cocaine was found in the
White
House?
It said 2 grams here. Here's what it says.
Inaccurate.
It says Gary's wrong. The news report just before he came on the radio said it was 2 grams of powder.
I'm sorry. It is 207.6 milligrams, and that is 0.2 grams.
Because 2,000 milligrams would be 2
so that
grams.
it is 0.2 grams, not 2 grams.
So
0.2. That's
so Gary was being generous.
Yes,
he was rounding up.
I'm gonna go get that phone
to 0.3 of a gram. Okay, Billy, thanks for keeping us straight on. In fact, if we were ever going to go down the road of the no labels thing and have someone fact check social media, maybe it's Billy. I don't know. 303. Sorry about that. 303-696-1971. Just looking at a text that came in. Here's what I want to do. I want to go to Jim from Denver, but let me do this first. Jim, I want to give you more time. And these breaks have run long enough that I want to make sure that we have enough on the back end here. So let me do this. Let me first tell you about Gay Ribble. And Jim, I promise you stay on. We'll get you on. And whoever else called in too at 303-696-1971. Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team of Keller Williams have been out there beating the bushes for the best deals in houses for you if you're a buyer. But that usually means you have to get out of your current house to be eligible. That's generally how it works. Well, they're great at that too. They're great at getting you top dollar for your home, even in this market. Interest rates are climbing. They could keep going higher. We know that the Fed has said we're probably good for a couple more rate hikes. The time to strike is likely right now if you can make it happen. And the people that can help you make that decision are Gay Ribble. Now, my advice is take them up on their offer to have the free phone call and get to be made smarter for free by them. And then make a decision. If you're not fully committed to this is the time to buy, this is the time to sell, you don't have to make the decision before you call Gay. I would pick up the phone and call her and that awesome team of super friendly people that they have right now and start that conversation. And they'll give it to you straight. They're not looking to just poach you and move on. They're looking for a long-time client. They know this probably won't be the only house that you ever buy or sell, and that you're going to have kids or other friends or relatives. They want you to say, hey, you know what? I had a great experience with Gay Ribble, and I want you to use them as well. So you can trust these folks. I do. They sell for faster than other realtors. They sell for more than other realtors. They're in the business of the low pressure but successful sale and purchase of a new house. They got 14,600 now families in waiting. They've helped 1,100 families just this last year alone get into and out of dream homes. Why wouldn't you want to be part of that? 833-301-SOLD. 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 Check them out at gayhasthebuyers.com. That's gay, G-A-Y-E, has the buyers, all 4 words put together.com. When we come back, your calls, your texts, my voice at 710 KNUS.
Imagine the lifelong impact of a journey to the Holy Land, surrounded by like-minded travelers. Picture yourself stepping foot in iconic locations right out of history. With nationally syndicated radio hosts Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher, you'll gain firsthand understanding of the spiritual and political importance of this vital region.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher here. I hope you'll join Dennis Prager and me on an amazing journey through Israel in October 2023.
Discover Israel's vibrant culture and why this nation is such a strategic partner for the United States. Join Dennis Prager and Mike Gallagher on this life-enriching Israel tour, October 25th through November 3rd, 2023. For more information, call 855-565-5519 or visit standwithisraeltour.com. Imagine
Aaliyah, right here, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler with the George Show. Final segment. I want to honor the callers. Jim from Denver, you're on 710. Jim, what are your thoughts?
Hey, I didn't plan on calling in again, but
I love it
you know
when
what?
you do.
I know exactly where that cocaine came from.
Oh my God, tell us.
It's been there for years. When Kid Rock came to meet the president like 6 years ago, before he sang that song that he got high with the president, okay?
That's it.
He did a line over there in the waiting room, and then Trump comes out and gives him a big hug, and he just brushes it off into the corner. All right. Now you may disagree with this, but the reason you're disagreeing with this is because you're angry. You're very angry that Kid Rock was given a higher security clearance without even a simple background check than even you have.
You know, that may be true. He's had access to documents and the former president I've never had access to. I likely wouldn't. That is true. And I've never written a song either. Jim, on a more serious note, what do you think's going on here? Was this just exactly as Gary described it? It was just some idiot who showed up there, realized they had coke in their pocket and ran away from it? Or is there something else going on? And for me, I'll believe the Secret Service. Okay, I'll believe it. How freaking embarrassing is that?
Listen, first off, you're welcome. And Willie
Yeah.
Nelson, of course, was a marijuana man, so he did marijuana in the White House. It was Kid Rock. So, because it's either that or Hunter Biden. Period.
Do you think it was Hunter, and how and why would Hunter do it?
How and why? Well, why? It's obvious. His name's Hunter. And how? He would get naked and roll around in it. And that's how much they have. I mean,
How
it's
did he
government.
get it into that place in the White House where the tour people go, or wherever it is?
Certain people don't get searched. I mean, come on. If Elton John walked in there, they're not going to lift up his dress and start patting him up.
You're in rare form, Jim, for the
Hey,
end
you're
of the
welcome.
weekend.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah, see you, Jim. My God, there's just some times where the callers don't just run the show; they take it completely off the rails. I don't know if it's Hunter Biden's cocaine any more than people that say that they know it is. I don't think it's knowable at this point. And if you're like, well, the Secret Service is now in on this, there's another organization that we have to burn to the ground. The Secret Service, the FBI, apparently the Department of Defense, because that NDAA bill, the National Defense Authorization Act, the Republicans put in the amendments we talked about at the top of the hour. It looks like it passed the House. It is probably going to die in the Senate on a party line vote. But I don't want to end the show without something positive and uplifting. Billy, you have something.
Yes. So if you know, Hunter Biden's cocaine or crack isn't your thing, and it's for 86 cents.
That can't be true.
It is
That
their
can't-
86.
a
it is
whole
their 86th
dozen, not
birthday.
a donut for
No,
86 cents.
An entire dozen for 86 cents. It is their 86th birthday. However, there is a little bit of a problem here in the Denver
what is
metro area. We only have Dos Donuts places we can get those. There are only 2 Krispy Kremes here in the metro
One is
area.
like 470 in Quebec.
Yeah, County Line, Quebec is basically
County
where it is,
Line.
right
Yeah,
off.
well,
But it's County Line, Quebec, more or
In
less.
between
yeah, but it's
County Line
right
and
there. Yep,
470. Yeah.
exactly, and right off of 470. Other one is Thornton on East 120th Avenue.
I ain't going up that far.
No.
man.
And-
Especially because Thornton's in Adams County, which turns out is crime central.
Yeah, and the other part for me is little sadness here because when I was going into the office at the other job, we were hop, skip, and a jump away from that Krispy Kreme.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we would have had Krispy Kreme all over the office, but I don't go to the office anymore there. So
Somebody
sad.
that hates thinner people brought in those chocolate donuts that you tried to wave me off of. And
Yeah,
listen,
no, don't do
without
those.
milk, these are the kind of chocolate donuts where they're hard on the outside and they're that soft, moist, artificially moist inside.
no, don't ever. No, those prepackaged ones.
No,
No,
but
never, never.
I lived off of those, man. Did you ever
know,
see
when you were
the-
younger? Yes.
the John Belushi
Yes.
Little chocolate donuts?
Yes.
These have been on my training table since I was a kid.
Yes.
That's true for me.
Oh, and see, the problem is when you're younger, you can have that, but there's so much preservatives and chemicals they have to put into those.
They're not going to
prepackaged
make me
donuts.
gay. They're not the
No.
kind of chemicals that make me gay.
No. Thanks to RFK. No, that's not
Yeah.
the kind. Yes.
My favorite part of the John Belushi
Yeah.
commercial though is, they show him running around like he
Oh, yeah.
was, in a decathlon,
Yeah.
but it's when he's sitting at the table and he's grabbing the donuts out of the bowl of chocolate donuts. He has a lit cigarette in there.
Yeah, he's like, no, this is what I'm
little chocolate donuts have been on my training table since I was a kid. I am tempted to now go down to that county line /
I am too.
470 Quebec
Yeah.
thing. 89 cents.
86.
86.
86, even cheaper than you were thinking. You would have saved yourself 3 whole cents.
I
know.
How do
86
they
cents. How do
stay
you-
in business?
I don't know. How do you pass this
And is
up?
it just the traditional Krispy Kremes, or do you get the fancy ones?
Good question. My guess would be just the traditional ones, but I imagine if you asked nicely enough, they probably wouldn't matter at all. 'cause
Look,
they
I
just
don't want to
wanna
look
move
a gift
donuts.
horse in the mouth because I think the
Yeah.
BTs, I think BT brought in the chocolate donuts, but man, couldn't
Yeah.
you drive by the old KK
I know. Go do
and
that.
pick us up some
You know
of
what
the
it
good
is? It's
stuff?
because he doesn't love us enough.
I
That's
don't
what it
know
is.
if that's well. Actually, I do think he doesn't love us enough, but I don't think that's the reason why he didn't go there. I think
Yeah.
it was just a straight up effort thing.
Yeah, it is.
And
It
he
was
might not
nice.
have known. I didn't know. I didn't
No.
know it was Krispy Kreme
Exactly.
86th
Yeah.
anniversary
86th
thing.
anniversary, so 86 cents for a dozen donuts today. But you either got to go to Thornton, 120th Avenue, or County Line in Quebec, more or less. It's right at C470.
I'm just bummed I
Yeah,
didn't
in
know
Quebec.
about this 36 years ago when it would have been
Yeah, I know. Wouldn't have been okay to do
trying
the
to do
entire
math
box,
on the
and you're like,
fly. What a
yeah.
clown, man.
I know. It's back when you had when you're younger and you had a fast metabolism and tight skin.
Oh yeah,
and,
that's not since I was 50.
I'm gonna go cry over here in the corner.
Yeah, listen, my thanks to Jenny Hopkins and Joe Cunningham from No Labels. Great conversation. And my thanks to you. Listen, great week. Listen to Jimmy at 3 and Stefan at 4, and we'll be back on Monday from 6 to 10. It's me, George, on the George Show, 710 KNUS.